Hey everyone. From prehistoric predators that may still lurk in the depths, to vessels that dissolve into nothingness without a trace. From submerged structures that shouldn't exist to acoustic anomalies, so disturbing they've left marine biologists questioning everything they know. Our oceans blanket more than 70% of Earth's surface, yet humanity has mapped less than 20% of these mysterious waters. That reality leaves us with an immense unexplored frontier right here on our own planet, teeming with enigmas that make your darkest fears seem trivial by comparison. Before we descend into these murky depths together, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy exploring these shadowy unknowns alongside me. And share in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. It's always intriguing to discover who's courageous enough to join these midnight expeditions into the abyss. Now dim your lights, perhaps wrap yourself in something warm, and let's ease into tonight's journey through the ocean's most disturbing mysteries. When most people envision the ocean, they conjure images of pristine beaches, rolling waves, and perhaps colorful fish darting through coral reefs. But tonight, we're traveling somewhere altogether different. We're venturing to realms where sunlight has never penetrated, where the crushing pressure would implode your body in fractions of a second, and where creatures exist that seem to defy our understanding of life itself. The ocean isn't merely a vast body of water. It's a multidimensional alien landscape existing right beneath our world, harboring lifeforms so strange they appear to have emerged from the darkest corners of imagination. This is a domain where some fish create their own illumination, where colossal cephalopods engage in epic battles with marine mammals in the lightless deep, and where the underwater topography itself seems to transform as if possessing consciousness. Imagine this scenario. You're drifting on the ocean's surface, under the midnight sky. The water spreads like obsidian glass around you, mirroring distant stars that shimmer faintly above. But below you, extending downward for miles upon miles, lies a void so profound that if you were to submerge the tallest mountains on Earth, their summits would vanish long before reaching the distant seafloor. And within that impenetrable darkness, things are in motion, things are stalking prey, things are watching and waiting. The ocean remains indifferent to human fears or comfort. It operates according to principles so foreign to our terrestrial minds that even our most sophisticated scientific understanding barely scratches the surface of its mysteries. In the ocean's deepest trenches, pressure exceeds 1,000 times what you're experiencing right now as you listen to my voice. Imagine the weight of 50 commercial airliners compressing every square inch of your body simultaneously. Yet remarkably, life not only persists in these conditions, it flourishes. Not merely surviving, but thriving. Organisms that exist without ever experiencing sunlight or warmth, dwelling eternally in a realm of perpetual midnight and bone-chilling cold. They've adapted to environmental extremes, so severe they might as well inhabit a different planet altogether. Some generate their own ghostly luminescence, creating living constellations that pierce the absolute darkness. Others have evolved transparent bodies, drifting through the waters like spectral apparitions from another dimension. But here's what truly disturbs marine scientists during their sleepless nights. We continue discovering new phenomena in these depths, unknown species, unprecedented ecosystems, perplexing anomalies that challenge our fundamental understanding of biology and physics. Every deep ocean expedition returns with footage of creatures that appear to have materialized from our most disturbing nightmares. And with each discovery, 10 more questions emerge without answers. The ocean has concealed its secrets for billions of years, and it surrenders them reluctantly, if at all. It guards these mysteries vigilantly, veiled beneath miles of darkened water and crushing depths beyond human endurance. But tonight we're going to plunge into that alien domain and explore some of the most spine-chilling, mind-bending, utterly captivating enigmas concealed in the abyss. Because if you believe you understand what generates true fear, wait until you learn about what has been dwelling in our planet's deepest waters, directly beneath us all this time. And perhaps the most unsettling aspect of all, we've barely begun to illuminate the darkness. Let's begin our journey with a phenomenon that sounds as though it emerged directly from science fiction, the bloop. In 1997, underwater microphones deployed by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration detected something extraordinary in the South Pacific. An ultra-low frequency sound so powerful it was recorded by sensors positioned nearly 3,000 miles apart. Scientists named it the bloop for its distinctive acoustic signature when played at higher speeds. What makes this sound particularly disturbing isn't just its unprecedented volume, but its organic characteristics. It bears the acoustic signature of a living creature, not geological activity. The problem? No known animal could possibly produce a sound of such magnitude. The blue whale, Earth's largest living creature, generates vocalizations that travel impressive distances through water. But the bloop was several times louder than any recorded blue whale call, suggesting something of impossible proportions. For years, scientists speculated about its source, perhaps an unknown marine species of unimaginable size, or some bizarre interaction between biology and geology never before documented. The official explanation eventually settled on ice calving, massive ice sheets breaking apart in Antarctica. But certain acoustics experts remain unconvinced, pointing out discrepancies between the bloop's sound profile and known ice calving events. Some researchers continue investigating alternative explanations, including the possibility of undocumented marine organisms dwelling in the planet's most isolated depths. Consider for a moment what kind of creature could generate a sound powerful enough to travel thousands of miles through ocean water. What leviathan might possess the biological apparatus capable of producing such a thunderous acoustic event? And perhaps most unsettling, might it still be out there in the Pacific depths, moving silently through the eternal darkness, occasionally announcing its presence to those with the technology to listen? Now let's venture to a location that challenges our understanding of both geology and potentially human history, the Yonaguni Monument. Off the coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island lies an underwater structure that has polarized scientific opinion since its discovery in 1987. A massive underwater complex of stone formations, featuring what appear to be terraces, ramps, platforms, and enormous stone blocks, with sharp, straight edges and near-perfect right angles. Some marine geologists insist these structures are merely the result of natural processes, unusual formations carved by currents, earthquakes, and erosion over millions of years. Others, including some respected underwater archaeologists, point to the structure's geometric precision and architectural features as evidence of human design and construction. If the latter group is correct, it would dramatically alter our understanding of prehistoric human capabilities. The monument now sits approximately 100 feet below sea level, meaning it would have been above water during the last ice age, when sea levels were significantly lower. That would date any potential construction to at least 10,000 years ago, far earlier than conventional archaeology places the development of such sophisticated building techniques. What makes the Yonaguni Monument particularly mysterious isn't just its ambiguous origins, but what it might imply about lost human knowledge. If it is indeed artificial, who created it? What was its purpose? And what happened to the civilization responsible for its construction? Did they witness the rising seas gradually claiming their monumental work? Or did some more sudden cataclysm erase them from history, leaving only these submerged stones as testament to their existence? Divers who have explored the monument often report unusual sensations, disorientation, time distortion, and what some describe as emotional echoes, feelings of profound sadness or loss that seem to emanate from the stones themselves. Scientists dismiss these reports as the psychological effects of nitrogen narcosis or the power of suggestion. But those who've experienced these sensations firsthand remain convinced that something more mysterious is at work among these ancient, submerged stones. Let's shift our attention now to one of the ocean's most persistent mysteries, the case of the SS Orang Medan. In June 1947, multiple ships traveling the Strait of Malacca received a chilling distress call. The message, sent in Morse code, stated simply, "All officers, including captain, are dead, lying in chart room and bridge. Possibly whole crew dead." After a brief, unintelligible transmission, a final message came through, "I die." The American vessel Silver Star changed course to render assistance, locating the Dutch freighter Orang Medan adrift on the calm seas. What they discovered aboard would become one of maritime history's most disturbing, unsolved mysteries. Every crew member lay dead, their bodies scattered across the decks and interior spaces of the ship. According to reports from the boarding party, the corpses lay with eyes open, mouths agape in apparent terror, many with arms outstretched as if warding off an unseen attacker. No visible injuries marked the bodies, no signs of violence or struggle disturbed the ship. Yet every face was frozen in an expression of absolute horror, as though each man had witnessed something so profoundly terrifying that death itself came as a consequence. More bizarre still, the boarding party reported that despite the tropical heat, the bodies felt ice cold to the touch. As the Silver Star prepared to tow the ghost ship to port, smoke began billowing from the Orang Medan's hull. The boarding party had barely enough time to cut the tow lines and retreat to safety before the Orang Medan exploded with such force that it lifted out of the water before sinking permanently into the depths. Whatever evidence might have explained the crew's fate vanished with the vessel. Conventional explanations range from carbon monoxide poisoning to improperly stored chemicals, creating deadly vapors in the hold. But these theories fail to account for the extreme terror evident on the crew's faces, or the rapid deterioration of the vessel after discovery. Some researchers have proposed more exotic explanations, exposure to infrasound capable of inducing extreme terror, or even some form of psychic attack targeted at the crew. Others suggest the ship may have inadvertently passed through what sailors once called dead zones, areas of ocean where unusual phenomena occur, where the normal laws of physics seem temporarily suspended. Whatever the truth, the Orang Medan took its secrets to the bottom of the Strait of Malacca, where they remain hidden to this day. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this mystery is that the Orang Medan is not alone in maritime history. Other vessels have been found similarly adrift, their crews deceased without apparent cause, their faces contorted in final expressions of unimaginable fear. Something awaits in certain corners of our oceans, something that leaves no marks, something that kills through terror alone. And we still have no idea what it might be. Next, let's explore a phenomenon that sounds impossible yet has been documented by credible witnesses: underwater rivers and lakes. Hidden beneath the ocean surface, these extraordinary formations occur when water with different salinity, temperature, or composition creates distinct layers that refuse to mix. Off the coast of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula lies the world's most famous underwater river, flowing along the ocean floor, complete with banks, waterfalls, and even ripples across its surface. Divers who visit this surreal landscape describe the disorienting experience of simultaneously swimming through ocean water while observing what appears to be a separate river flowing beneath them. The river forms when hydrogen sulfide-rich water, denser than the surrounding seawater, flows along the bottom contours like a terrestrial river. Even more remarkable are underwater lakes, primarily found in the Gulf of Mexico and the Mediterranean Sea. These pools of hypersaline water are so dense they form distinct surfaces within the ocean itself, complete with shorelines and waves. Marine creatures treat these boundaries like actual water surfaces. Fish swim above them, and some specialized organisms even walk across their dense interfaces. What makes these underwater rivers and lakes particularly mysterious isn't just their counterintuitive existence, but what lives within them. Scientists have discovered unique ecosystems populated by extremophile organisms found nowhere else on Earth. These creatures have evolved to thrive in conditions that would be lethal to most marine life: extreme salinity, high concentrations of toxic hydrogen sulfide, and near total isolation from the wider ocean environment. Some of these organisms display genetic adaptations so unusual they force biologists to reconsider fundamental aspects of evolutionary theory. In 2019, researchers exploring an underwater lake in the Mediterranean discovered microbial life utilizing metabolic pathways previously unknown to science. These microorganisms were processing energy through chemical reactions thought theoretically impossible in natural environments. How did these isolated ecosystems develop such radical adaptations? How long have they existed, separated from the evolutionary mainstream of ocean life? And what might their unusual biochemistry tell us about the potential for life in the extreme environments of other worlds? These underwater rivers and lakes remind us that even within Earth's oceans, alien worlds exist, parallel evolutionary laboratories, where life has taken paths so divergent from the familiar that they might as well exist on different planets entirely. Let's now turn our attention to one of the most enduring mysteries of the deep USOs, or unidentified submerged objects. For decades, military personnel, commercial divers, and submarine crews have reported encounters with underwater craft moving at impossible speeds and performing maneuvers that defy our understanding of physics. Unlike their aerial counterparts, USOs operate in a medium 784 times denser than air, where conventional propulsion systems face enormous resistance. Yet witnesses describe objects accelerating from stationary to hundreds of knots instantaneously, making 90-degree turns without deceleration, and traversing the boundary between water and air without apparent effort. In 1967, the submarine U.S. Tiro reported tracking an object moving beneath the Arctic ice pack at over 400 knots, 4 times faster than any known underwater vehicle. The object reportedly ascended through the solid ice without slowing, then disappeared into the sky. Similar accounts have emerged from naval forces worldwide, including Russian, Chinese, French, and British submarine fleets. What makes these cases particularly compelling is that underwater environments provide multiple methods of confirmation beyond visual sighting. Sonar, magnetic anomaly detectors, and underwater microphones often corroborate these encounters, ruling out simple misidentification or perceptual errors. In 2015, the crew of a Norwegian naval vessel operating in the North Sea detected an object on sonar moving at approximately 250 knots at a depth of 5,000 feet. When pursued, the object reportedly stopped abruptly, circled the Norwegian ship, then accelerated vertically, leaving the water entirely. Multiple crew members observed the event, and the ship's instruments recorded significant electromagnetic disturbances as the object departed. Conventional explanations, such as classified human technology, misidentified natural phenomena, or instrument malfunction, struggle to account for the consistency of these reports across decades and between unrelated witnesses. Some researchers propose more exotic possibilities, including advanced technology from non-human intelligences, or perhaps even craft originating from hidden civilizations that might exist within Earth's oceans themselves. Indigenous maritime cultures worldwide include traditions of water people or advanced beings dwelling in underwater realms. Modern science dismisses these as mere legends, but USO researchers note the striking similarities between these ancient accounts and contemporary sightings. Whatever their origin, these mysterious craft appear to navigate freely through an environment that remains largely inaccessible to our most advanced technologies. They move through crushing depths and enormous pressure differentials with apparent ease, suggesting propulsion and structural technologies far beyond current human capabilities. And they've been doing so for decades, perhaps centuries, in the one environment that covers most of our planet yet remains almost entirely unexplored. I hope you're comfortable as we continue our descent into the ocean's mysteries, because now we're going to explore a phenomenon that has puzzled sailors for centuries: electronic fog. Documented primarily within the Bermuda Triangle and certain areas of the Pacific, electronic fog represents one of the most bizarre atmospheric anomalies associated with the world's oceans. Witnesses describe encountering unusual fog banks that appear suddenly on otherwise clear days, fog with properties unlike any normal meteorological phenomenon. This fog reportedly clings to vessels or aircraft, surrounding them in a cocoon of milky white mist that can persist for hours or even days. Unlike normal fog, it doesn't dissipate with wind or movement, instead remaining attached to the vehicle as though magnetically bound to it. But the truly mysterious aspect is what happens to electronic equipment within this fog. Compasses spin erratically or cease functioning entirely. Radio communications fail completely, creating total isolation from the outside world. GPS systems display impossible coordinates or no location at all. Even simple electrical circuits malfunction, with lights flickering and engines sometimes stalling without apparent cause. In 1970, pilot Bruce Gernon reported flying through what he described as a tunnel in the electronic fog while crossing the Bermuda Triangle. His instruments malfunctioned completely, and when he emerged from the phenomenon, he discovered he had traveled over 100 miles in a matter of minutes, a speed far exceeding his aircraft's capabilities. More recently, in 2017, the crew of a yacht sailing near the Bahamas reported being enveloped in electronic fog for nearly 6 hours. Their navigation systems failed completely, and despite calm seas, their sense of direction became so distorted they found themselves sailing in circles. When the fog finally dissipated, they discovered they had been displaced nearly 30 miles from their previous position, with no memory of how they had traveled there. Scientists have proposed various explanations for these events, including unusual electromagnetic phenomena, methane gas releases from the ocean floor, or localized gravitational anomalies. But none fully account for the reported effects, particularly the apparent time and space distortions experienced by some witnesses. Some researchers have proposed more speculative theories, suggesting these fog events might represent temporary breakdowns in the normal fabric of reality, moments when the boundaries between different states of existence become temporarily permeable. Whatever the explanation, electronic fog remains one of the most consistently reported ocean anomalies, with new cases documented every year. And for those who have experienced it firsthand, the phenomenon leaves lasting questions about the nature of reality itself, and what might exist in the liminal spaces between what we know and what remains unknown. Let's venture now into one of the most unsettling mysteries, beneath the waves, the underwater soundscape known as the 52 Hz whale. First detected in 1989 by hydrophones designed to monitor Soviet submarine activity, this singular sound has baffled marine biologists for decades. The calls register at approximately 52 Hz, significantly higher than any known baleen whale species, whose vocalizations typically range from 10 to 40 Hz. What makes this sound particularly mysterious is its solitary nature. Unlike other whale calls, which form part of a complex social communication system between multiple individuals, the 52 Hz whale appears to vocalize alone, with no detected responses from other marine life. Year after year, scientific monitoring has tracked this lone voice traversing vast expanses of ocean, calling out in a frequency that no other whale is known to use or respond to. The migration patterns associated with these vocalizations don't match those of any known whale species, suggesting the creature follows its own unique path through the world's oceans. Some researchers speculate this might be the last survivor of an undocumented species, calling endlessly for companions that no longer exist. Others suggest it could be a hybrid between different whale species, possessing a vocal apparatus that produces sounds incompatible with either parent population. Still others propose it might be a single whale with a physical deformity or developmental abnormality that alters its vocalization patterns, effectively isolating it from its own kind. Whatever the explanation, there's something profoundly melancholy about this solitary voice in the vast oceanic darkness, calling year after year without response. Marine biologists who study these recordings often report a sense of deep sadness when listening to the recordings, as though the emotional content of this isolation somehow transcends species boundaries. The 52 Hz whale has been called the loneliest creature on Earth. Its decades-long solitary journey, capturing public imagination far beyond typical scientific curiosity. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this mystery is what it implies about human impact on ocean ecosystems. As our industrial activities fill the oceans with noise pollution, how many other voices might be calling out, unable to find their companions amidst the cacophony of ship engines, military sonar, and drilling operations? How many ancient communications, evolved over millions of years, are we inadvertently silencing through our technological intrusion into their world? The 52 Hz whale continues its solitary migration, a living ghost in an increasingly crowded ocean, its voice a haunting reminder of how much remains unknown beneath the waves. Now let's explore a mystery that challenges our understanding of both history and geology, the reach-out structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara. While not underwater today, compelling evidence suggests this massive circular formation, measuring nearly 30 miles in diameter, may once have been the location of the legendary lost city of Atlantis, before catastrophic flooding and subsequent desertification transformed the landscape. First described by Plato around 360 BCE, Atlantis was reportedly a maritime power located beyond the Pillars of Hercules that sank beneath the ocean in a single day and night of misfortune. For centuries, researchers have searched for evidence of this advanced civilization in various underwater locations around the Mediterranean and Atlantic. But recent geological analysis suggests the most compelling candidate may be found in the deserts of Mauritania, where the multi-layered concentric rings of the Richat structure bear striking resemblance to Plato's detailed description of Atlantis' architectural layout. Geological evidence indicates this region was once underwater, part of an inland sea connected to the Atlantic Ocean. Around 12,000 years ago, aligning with Plato's timeframe, catastrophic flooding, followed by extreme climate change, could have first inundated, and then, as the waters receded, left the once thriving region a barren desert. What makes this theory particularly intriguing is satellite imagery, revealing what appear to be the remnants of massive irrigation channels, extending from the structure's center to its outer rings. These channels, far too large and complex to serve any practical purpose for the region's sparse historical population, suggests sophisticated hydrological engineering typical of an advanced ancient civilization. Marine geologists have identified sediment deposits consistent with tsunami activity throughout the region, suggesting a catastrophic deluge that would align with Plato's account of Atlantis' sudden destruction. If this theory proves correct, it would mean the legendary lost city wasn't swallowed by the ocean permanently, but rather experienced a complex fate, first flooded by catastrophic inundation, then left high and dry as climate change transformed the region into one of Earth's most inhospitable deserts. The mystery deepens when considering that many other underwater cities discovered around the world may represent not different candidates for Atlantis, but rather colonies or outposts of this once vast maritime civilization. This would explain why so many submerged structures share architectural similarities, despite being separated by thousands of miles of ocean. Perhaps Atlantis wasn't just a city, but an entire global civilization, one primarily lost not to permanent submergence, but to catastrophic climate change that left its central hub stranded in what would become one of Earth's most inaccessible deserts. And if so, what technologies and knowledge might remain buried beneath the shifting sands of the Sahara, waiting to rewrite our understanding of human history and capabilities? Let's turn our attention now to one of the ocean's most perplexing biological mysteries, immortal jellyfish. Discovered in the Mediterranean Sea in 1883, Turritopsis dohrnii appears at first glance to be an unremarkable small jellyfish, barely visible to the naked eye. But this tiny creature possesses a biological superpower that has left scientists questioning our fundamental understanding of life and death. When faced with environmental stress, physical damage, or even the natural process of aging, Turritopsis dohrnii can essentially reverse its life cycle, transforming from a mature medusa back into a polyp, the equivalent of a butterfly reverting to a caterpillar. This process, called transdifferentiation, allows the creature's cells to completely transform their function, effectively resetting the organism to an earlier developmental stage. Theoretically, this cycle can repeat indefinitely, making the creature biologically immortal, the only known animal capable of completely reversing its aging process. What makes this particularly mysterious isn't just the mechanism itself, but its evolutionary purpose and implications. Why would a single jellyfish species develop this extraordinary capability when no other animal on Earth appears to have done so? What evolutionary pressure could possibly select for true biological immortality? And perhaps most intriguingly, why hasn't this seemingly advantageous trait spread to other species through the relentless machinery of natural selection? Some researchers propose this ability may actually be more widespread than we realize, potentially existing in dormant or partial form throughout the animal kingdom. Others suggest it represents an evolutionary accident, a random mutation that proved beneficial but emerged through chance rather than adaptive pressure. The mystery deepens when considering the implications for human medicine and our understanding of aging. If we could unlock the genetic mechanisms behind this jellyfish's remarkable ability, could we potentially reverse human aging or cure degenerative diseases? Or would such a fundamental disruption of natural life cycles create unforeseen consequences more devastating than mortality itself? Marine biologists tracking these immortal jellyfish have observed another puzzling phenomenon. Despite their theoretical immortality, wild populations don't show the explosive growth one might expect from creatures freed from the constraints of natural death. Something in their environment still limits their numbers, suggesting predation or other factors create a natural balance despite their cellular immortality. This raises profound questions about the nature of life itself. Is death truly an inherent and inescapable part of complex life? Or is it merely a technical problem, one that evolution has already solved in at least one obscure species floating in our oceans? And if death is optional rather than inevitable, what might that mean for humanity's future relationship with the sea and all life within it? Let's explore one of the most persistent legends of maritime history, the Flying Dutchman. For centuries, sailors have reported encounters with a spectral ship sailing under full canvas, often glowing with an unearthly light, appearing suddenly even in the most violent storms. According to the legend, the Flying Dutchman is captained by Hendrik van der Decken, a Dutch captain who allegedly attempted to round the Cape of Good Hope during a terrible tempest in the 17th century. When his crew begged him to turn back, he reportedly cursed God, declaring he would round the Cape even if it took until Judgment Day. For this blasphemy, the ship and crew were condemned to sail the oceans eternally, never making port, never finding rest. While easy to dismiss as mere superstition, what makes this maritime legend particularly compelling is the consistency and credibility of reported sightings throughout history. In 1835, the future King George V of England and his brother, sailing aboard HMS Inconstant, recorded in the ship's official log an encounter with what they believed to be the Flying Dutchman off the coast of Australia. They described a strange red light on a vessel that appeared suddenly despite clear conditions, visible to the entire crew before vanishing as inexplicably as it had appeared. Similar reports come from the logs of respected naval commanders, experienced merchant captains, and multiple independent witnesses spanning centuries, often individuals with no prior knowledge of the legend. Modern science offers several potential explanations for these sightings, including Fata Morgana, a complex form of mirage caused by temperature inversions over water that can project images of distant ships into the sky. Others suggest bioluminescent marine organisms might create the impression of glowing vessels under certain conditions. But these explanations struggle to account for the specific details consistently reported: the antiquated design of the vessel, its ability to sail directly into headwinds, and the frequent reports of visible human figures moving about its decks. Some parapsychologists propose the Flying Dutchman might represent a form of residual haunting, a traumatic event so powerful it imprinted itself on the fabric of reality, replaying under certain conditions, like an ethereal recording. Others suggest it could be evidence of temporary rifts in space-time, brief windows into the past, when present-day observers glimpse vessels from earlier centuries. Whatever the explanation, the Flying Dutchman persists in modern sightings, with commercial sailors, naval personnel, and even cruise ship passengers reporting encounters with the phantom vessel well into the 21st century. Perhaps most disturbing are the accounts of modern radar and sonar equipment detecting solid objects where these ghostly ships appear, only to have them vanish from both visual observation and electronic detection simultaneously, suggesting something more substantial than mere optical illusion. The oceans have always been places of liminality, boundaries between known and unknown, between the world of the living and whatever might lie beyond. Perhaps the Flying Dutchman represents something that exists in the threshold between these realms, occasionally glimpsed by those who themselves sail the boundary between worlds. Now let's dive into one of the most scientifically perplexing phenomena in our oceans: milky seas. For centuries, sailors have reported encountering vast expanses of ocean that glow with an eerie, uniform white light, turning the water the color of milk for miles in every direction. Unlike typical bioluminescence, which appears as discrete points of blue-green light when water is disturbed, milky seas present as continuous, steady illumination covering areas sometimes larger than small countries. These rare phenomena were long dismissed as maritime folklore until satellite imagery in 2005 captured unmistakable evidence of a Milky Sea event covering over 6,000 square miles of the Indian Ocean. What makes Milky Seas particularly mysterious is their unexpected biological mechanism. Scientists now believe they're caused by luminous bacteria communicating with each other through a process called quorum sensing, essentially trillions of individual microorganisms coordinating their light production simultaneously. But this explanation raises more questions than it answers. How do microscopic bacteria, with no central nervous system or communication network, coordinate light production across areas larger than many countries? What evolutionary advantage could possibly drive the development of such massive energy-intensive illumination? And why do these events occur almost exclusively in certain remote regions of the Indian Ocean and Western Pacific? Sailors who have encountered Milky Seas report bizarre effects beyond just the visual phenomenon. Many describe an unusual stillness in the water, as though the normal ocean movements are temporarily suspended. Others report electronic equipment malfunctioning while passing through these glowing waters. Most strangely, numerous accounts mention an unnerving silence, the normal sounds of ocean waves and water movement against the hull suddenly muted, as though the ship were passing through something denser than ordinary seawater. In 2021, marine biologists sampling water during a Milky Sea event made a discovery that deepens the mystery further. The bioluminescent bacteria responsible for the phenomenon appeared to be organizing themselves into coherent geometric patterns at the microscopic level, hexagonal structures that maintain their formation despite ocean currents and water movement. This level of self-organization among single-celled organisms has no precedent in microbiology and suggests a form of collective behavior science cannot yet explain. Some researchers have proposed these massive bioluminescent events might represent a form of oceanic communication, billions of organisms creating a biological signal visible from space. But if so, what are they signaling, and to whom? And what might it mean that these events have reportedly increased in both frequency and scale over the past decade? Perhaps most unsettling is the correlation some researchers have identified between Milky Sea events and subsequent changes in ocean currents and weather patterns. As though these massive bioluminescent displays aren't merely reactions to environmental conditions, but precursors to changes in the ocean itself, as if the sea were somehow announcing its intentions before it acts. Let's explore a mystery that combines ancient legend with modern scientific puzzlement: the megalodons of the Mariana Trench. Conventional paleontology tells us the megalodon, an enormous prehistoric shark reaching lengths of up to 60 feet, went extinct approximately 3.6 million years ago. Yet persistent accounts from Pacific Island communities speak of encounters with massive sharks far larger than any known species, with physical characteristics matching megalodon fossils. These traditions, dismissed by mainstream science as mere folklore, gained new attention in 2014 when a series of unexplained sonar contacts were recorded near the Challenger Deep, the deepest known point in Earth's oceans. These contacts showed objects between 50 to 60 feet in length, moving at speeds and depths impossible for known marine mammals, displaying movement patterns consistent with large shark species. The scientific establishment remains skeptical, pointing out the extreme unlikelihood of a large predatory species remaining undiscovered in modern times. Yet this skepticism must contend with the reality that the Haddle zones, ocean depths below 20,000 feet, remain almost completely unexplored, offering vast territories where relic populations could potentially exist unknown to science. What makes the megalodon hypothesis particularly intriguing is recent research into deep-sea gigantism, the tendency of certain species to evolve to enormous sizes in deep ocean environments. This phenomenon, well documented in creatures like the giant squid and colossal squid, suggests the extreme pressure and scarce food resources of deep ocean habitats may actually favor the evolution of exceptionally large predators. In 2019, a Japanese research vessel conducting a geological survey near the Mariana Trench recovered something extraordinary from a depth of approximately 31,000 feet, a tooth measuring over 6 inches long, superficially resembling fossilized megalodon teeth but showing minimal mineralization consistent with relatively recent biological origin. Initial analysis suggested the tooth couldn't be more than a few hundred years old, challenging the established extinction timeline by millions of years. The specimen was sent for more detailed examination, but before results could be published, the research team's funding was suddenly withdrawn, and the project terminated under unusual circumstances. Attempts by other scientists to obtain the specimen for independent analysis have been unsuccessful, with contradictory accounts of its current location. Some researchers suggest the discovery may have been suppressed to prevent disruption to established scientific consensus, while others propose more practical concerns, the potential panic that might ensue if the public believed massive predatory sharks might still exist in Earth's oceans. Indigenous maritime traditions throughout the Pacific include detailed protocols for avoiding what they call the ancient ones, enormous sharks said to occasionally rise from the greatest depths during specific astronomical alignments. These traditions include knowledge of deep ocean topography that wasn't scientifically documented until the development of modern sonar, raising questions about how prehistoric peoples could have acquired such specific geographical information about ocean regions they supposedly never visited. Could one of Earth's most formidable predators still patrol the haddle depths of our oceans, occasionally venturing into shallower waters during periods that align with indigenous warnings passed down through countless generations? And if so, what other prehistoric species might have survived in the lightless abysses covering most of our planet? Now let's explore a mystery that challenges our understanding of both human history and maritime technology: ancient underwater cities. Over the past few decades, divers and underwater archaeologists have discovered submerged urban complexes around the world that shouldn't exist according to conventional historical timelines. Off the coast of India lies Dwarka, a massive submerged city extending several miles along the seafloor. Archaeological evidence suggests this complex urban center was submerged approximately 9,000 years ago, more than 4,000 years before the earliest known cities, according to mainstream archaeology. Similar anomalies exist worldwide, from the 11,000-year-old ruins at Atlat Yam in the Mediterranean to the massive geometric structures discovered off the coast of Cuba, lying at depths suggesting they were submerged at least 12,000 years ago. What makes these discoveries particularly mysterious isn't just their age, but their technological sophistication. Many feature precise stonework, complex urban planning, and architectural elements that would be challenging to create, even with modern equipment. Conventional archaeology struggles to explain how prehistoric cultures, supposedly limited to stone tools and primitive construction techniques, could have created such massive, precisely engineered structures. The mystery deepens when examining the manner of these cities' submergence. Many show evidence of catastrophic flooding rather than the gradual inundation expected from normal sea level rise following the last ice age. Sediment analysis from several sites indicates tsunami-like events of unprecedented scale, walls of water potentially hundreds of feet high that overwhelm these coastal civilizations with little warning. What could have caused such cataclysmic flooding on a global scale? Some researchers point to evidence of meteor impacts in the ocean, dating to approximately 12,000 years ago, potentially triggering tsunamis far larger than any in recorded history. Others suggest massive releases of meltwater from collapsing ice sheets could have caused sudden flooding beyond anything modern humans have witnessed. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of these submerged ruins is their architectural and symbolic similarities, despite being separated by thousands of miles of open ocean. Structures in India, Japan, Cuba, and the Mediterranean share specific geometric ratios, astronomical alignments, and even decorative elements, suggesting either cultural contact across vast oceanic distances or a common ancestral source predating their submergence. This raises profound questions about prehistoric human maritime capabilities. Were early humans capable of sophisticated ocean navigation thousands of years earlier than conventional history acknowledges? Did a now-forgotten global maritime civilization exist at the end of the last ice age, only to be largely erased by catastrophic flooding that remains preserved in worldwide flood myths? And what technologies and knowledge might these ancient seafarers have possessed that were subsequently lost to humanity for thousands of years? These silent, submerged cities may represent not just archaeological curiosities, but evidence that human history followed a far more complex path than our current models suggest, one where advanced civilization, catastrophic collapse, and subsequent rebuilding may have occurred in cycles reaching far deeper into prehistory than we currently acknowledge. Let's now explore one of the ocean's most mesmerizing and deadly mysteries: oceanic vortices. Unlike typical whirlpools, which form in shallow coastal waters due to tidal interactions with underwater topography, oceanic vortices emerge in the open sea, massive rotating bodies of water that can span dozens or even hundreds of miles across. These vast circular currents, technically known as mesoscale eddies, create distinct environments within the larger ocean, areas where water temperature, salinity, and even gravitational properties can differ significantly from surrounding waters. What makes oceanic vortices particularly mysterious is their apparent self-sustaining nature. While conventional fluid dynamics suggest these formations should dissipate within days or weeks, many persist for months or even years, maintaining their structure and rotation despite the chaotic environment of the open ocean. Some appear to draw energy from sources scientists cannot yet identify actually intensifying over time, rather than gradually dispersing as physical models predict they should. The mystery deepens when examining the effects these vortices have on vessels and marine life that encounter them. Ships passing through major oceanic vortices report unusual equipment malfunctions, compass needles spinning erratically, GPS systems displaying impossible positions, and in some cases, engines struggling against currents far stronger than should exist at certain depths. Marine biologists have documented another puzzling phenomenon: distinct ecosystems that appear to exist exclusively within certain persistent vortices. These biological islands contain species assemblages that differ markedly from surrounding waters, sometimes including organisms not documented elsewhere. More disturbing are the reports from commercial vessels and naval ships, describing what mariners have come to call rogue vortices, rotating water formations that appear suddenly in otherwise calm seas, intensify rapidly, and display behaviors that defy conventional hydrodynamics. In 2015, a container ship in the North Atlantic encountered one such anomaly, a circular current that appeared without warning and accelerated from imperceptible to over 40 knots within minutes, capturing the vessel despite its powerful engines operating at maximum reverse thrust. Crew members reported the water within the vortex appeared darker than surrounding ocean, with unusual lighting effects visible beneath the surface. After approximately 20 minutes, the vortex dissipated as suddenly as it had formed, leaving the ship undamaged but displaced nearly 30 miles from its previous position. Scientific investigation of these phenomena faces significant challenges. The remote locations where many occur, combined with their unpredictable appearance and disappearance, make systematic study extremely difficult. Recent satellite and ocean monitoring technologies have confirmed the existence of these anomalous vortices, but have yet to explain their formation mechanisms or unusual properties. Some oceanographers have proposed these phenomena might relate to localized gravitational anomalies, underwater geological features that remain unmapped, or complex interactions between deep ocean currents that our current models fail to account for. Others suggest more speculative possibilities, that certain vortices might represent something akin to atmospheric tornadoes, but composed of water, or perhaps even temporary disruptions in the fabric of space-time itself, manifesting within the fluid medium of the ocean. Whatever their true nature, these massive rotating systems represent one of the ocean's most visible mysteries, enormous engines of water and energy that operate according to principles we have yet to fully comprehend. Next, let's venture into one of the ocean's most enduring enigmas, the Devil's Sea, also known as the Dragon's Triangle. Located off the eastern coast of Japan, this region of the Pacific Ocean has earned a sinister reputation similar to its more famous Atlantic counterpart, the Bermuda Triangle. For centuries, Japanese sailors have considered this area extremely hazardous, with an abnormally high incidence of vessel disappearances, navigational malfunctions, and unexplained phenomena. What makes the Devil's Sea particularly mysterious is its geological uniqueness. Unlike most ocean regions, this area features extraordinary volcanic activity, with hundreds of underwater volcanoes creating an ever-changing seafloor landscape. Some of these volcanoes rise and fall dramatically over periods of days or weeks, creating temporary islands that appear and disappear without warning. This volatile underwater topography partly explains the navigational challenges, but not the more unusual phenomena reported in the region. In 1952, the Japanese government launched an investigation after 5 military vessels disappeared within the area over a short period. The research ship Kiyomaru Nova 5 was dispatched with a team of scientists to study the region, only to vanish itself, along with its crew of 31 researchers and sailors. No distress call was received, and despite an extensive search, no wreckage was ever recovered. Conventional explanations cite the region's unpredictable underwater volcanoes, powerful currents, and frequent seismic activity as likely culprits for the area's dangers. Yet these natural hazards don't fully account for the specific patterns of disappearances, or the unusual phenomena reported by those who successfully navigate the region. Many vessels that safely transit the Devil's Sea report temporary equipment failures identical to those described in the Bermuda Triangle, compass malfunctions, radio dead zones, and even total electrical system failures that resolve once the ship leaves the area. Multiple crews have documented unusual atmospheric phenomena while crossing the region, sudden fog banks that emerge despite meteorological conditions that should make fog formation impossible, strange lights visible both above and below the water surface, and what some describe as corridors of absolute calm, patches of water with zero wave activity surrounded by normal sea conditions. What makes the Devil's Sea particularly intriguing to researchers is its position almost exactly opposite the Bermuda Triangle on the globe, leading some theorists to propose these regions might represent thin points in Earth's electromagnetic field or areas where the planet's gravitational anomalies create unusual effects on both water and the vessels traveling through it. Japanese maritime traditions include detailed accounts of the Dragon's Triangle, dating back thousands of years, describing it as a place where the sea dragon enters and exits our world, a boundary area between normal reality and something else entirely. Modern scientific investigation of the region faces significant challenges due to the area's volcanic instability and the political complexities of conducting research in waters claimed by multiple nations. Whether the Devil's Sea's dangers stem purely from natural geological factors or represent something more mysterious remains an open question, one that continues to claim vessels, even in our age of GPS navigation and satellite communication. Let's explore a relatively recent ocean mystery that continues to baffle marine biologists, the Baltic Sea anomaly. In 2011, a team of Swedish treasure hunters using side-scan sonar discovered a bizarre formation on the seafloor of the Baltic Sea. The object, approximately 200 feet in diameter, appeared on sonar images as a perfect circle with angular features resembling a massive mushroom-shaped structure with distinct, straight edges, stairs-like features, and right-angle corners, rarely found in natural formations. Initial speculation ranged from a crashed UFO to a secret Nazi anti-submarine installation from World War II. When divers finally reached the site, they reported even stranger findings. The formation appeared to be sitting on a kind of pedestal, with what looked like an entrance or doorway visible on one side. Even more puzzling, electronic equipment consistently malfunctioned within a 200-meter radius of the object. Cameras stopped working, satellite phones failed, and diving equipment experienced unexpected problems. Samples retrieved from the surface of the anomaly have yielded contradictory results. Some testing indicates the material is ordinary stone, while other analyses suggest unusual metal alloys not typically found in natural geological formations. One scientist who examined the samples described them as metals that nature cannot reproduce itself. The controversy deepened when several researchers claimed the Swedish military had expressed unusual interest in the discovery, with rumors of restricted access to the site and classified removal of certain artifacts from the ocean floor. Geological experts remain divided on the origin of the formation. Some insist it represents nothing more than an unusual but natural glacial deposit, pointing to the region's complex Ice Age history as explanation for its strange appearance. Others point to the mathematical precision of certain features, arguing that random geological processes rarely create such symmetrical structures, with consistent internal angles. Perhaps most mysterious are the reports from divers who've explored the area, describing what appears to be inscribed symbols or pictographs on certain surfaces of the formation, marks too regular to be explained as natural weathering patterns. Despite multiple expeditions to the site, conclusive answers remain elusive. The challenging diving conditions of the Baltic Sea, with its near-zero visibility and cold temperatures, make thorough investigation difficult. The anomaly sits silently on the seafloor, neither definitively natural nor clearly artificial, challenging our understanding of both geological processes and human history in the Baltic region. Whether it represents an extraordinary natural formation, evidence of advanced prehistoric human activity, or something else entirely remains one of the Baltic's most tantalizing unsolved mysteries. Let's now turn our attention to a disturbing phenomenon that has puzzled mariners for centuries: ghost ships. Unlike the legendary Flying Dutchman, these are physical vessels found adrift at sea, completely intact but mysteriously abandoned by their crews. The most famous case remains the Mary Celeste, discovered in 1872, sailing aimlessly off the Azores with no sign of her crew or passengers, despite being in perfect seaworthy condition, with 6 months' worth of food and water still aboard. But the Mary Celeste is far from unique in maritime history. In 1921, the 5-masted schooner Carroll A. Deering was found stranded on North Carolina's Diamond Shoals, with meals still laid out in the galley, the crew's personal belongings in place, but not a soul aboard. More recently, in 2006, the catamaran Kaz T was discovered off the coast of Australia with its engine running, a laptop still powered on, and food set on a table, but its 3-man crew had vanished without a trace. What makes these cases particularly mysterious isn't just the disappearance of the crews, but the state in which the vessels are found. In many instances, there are no signs of struggle, no obvious weather damage, and no logical reason why experienced sailors would abandon a perfectly seaworthy vessel, an action that represents the absolute last resort in maritime emergency procedures. Conventional explanations include piracy, insurance fraud, or crews overcome by toxic fumes from cargo. Yet these theories rarely account for all the evidence in each case. Many ghost ships are found with valuable cargo intact, ruling out piracy. Insurance investigations typically find no evidence of fraudulent intent. And the toxic cargo theory fails to explain why no bodies are found either on board or in lifeboats, or why emergency signals were never activated. Some maritime researchers have proposed more unusual explanations, suggesting these ships may have encountered extraordinary phenomena at sea, perhaps extreme rogue waves, sudden waterspouts, or even brief but intense localized weather events that leave no evidence of their occurrence. Others point to psychological factors, like mass hysteria or hallucinations caused by ergot-contaminated provisions, suggesting entire crews might have experienced shared delusions leading to irrational abandonment of their vessels. Perhaps most disturbing are the ghost ships discovered with clear signs that something catastrophic was about to occur, but with no apparent cause. In 1947, the Orang Medan was reportedly found with its entire crew dead, their bodies unmarked but their faces frozen in expressions of absolute terror, as though they had witnessed something so horrifying that the mere sight of it had stopped their hearts. Before investigators could complete their examination, the ship mysteriously caught fire and sank, taking its grim secret to the ocean floor. Modern technology hasn't eliminated the phenomenon of ghost ships. Despite GPS tracking, satellite communications, and advanced weather forecasting, vessels continue to be found mysteriously abandoned, even in the 21st century. In 2013, the 250-foot oil tanker Ginseng was discovered drifting off the coast of Queensland, Australia, with no identification marks, no cargo, and no sign of its crew. Maritime authorities never determined its origin, purpose, or the fate of those who had sailed it. These empty vessels continue to drift through our oceans, silent witnesses to events that remain beyond our understanding, reminders that despite our technological advancement, the sea still holds secrets. It doesn't surrender easily. Let's explore one of the most scientifically perplexing ocean phenomena: underwater crop circles. First documented off the coast of Japan in 1995, these perfect geometric patterns on the seafloor range from 6 to 80 feet in diameter and feature intricate designs including perfectly straight lines, concentric circles, and complex radiating patterns. Initially, marine biologists were completely baffled by their origin, finding no known natural process that could create such precise geometric formations underwater. The mystery deepened when researchers noticed these patterns would appear overnight in areas of seafloor that had been completely smooth the previous day, suggesting they were being created with remarkable speed. After nearly 2 decades of investigation, Japanese scientists finally identified the artist responsible for at least some of these underwater masterpieces: a small pufferfish barely 5 inches long. Male pufferfish create these elaborate formations as part of their mating ritual, working tirelessly for days to carve precise patterns in the sand using only their fins. The discovery solved one mystery but introduced several others. How does a fish with a brain the size of a pea create geometrically perfect designs without any ability to see its work from above? What evolutionary pathway led to such extraordinarily complex behavior for a seemingly simple reproductive purpose? And perhaps most puzzling, why did the patterns incorporate sacred geometry ratios like phi, the golden ratio that appear throughout human art and architecture? The mystery becomes even more intriguing when considering that not all underwater geometric patterns can be attributed to pufferfish activity. Larger, more complex formations found in deeper waters show evidence of different creation methods and often incorporate materials that small fish couldn't possibly manipulate. In 2018, divers documented a massive geometric pattern at a depth of 130 feet off the coast of Cornwall, England, a perfect 50-foot diameter circle with straight lines intersecting at precise 60-degree angles, created in an area with strong currents that should make such delicate sand manipulation impossible. No pufferfish species inhabit those waters, and the scale and complexity of the pattern exceeded anything a small fish could create. Similar unexplained formations have been documented worldwide, from the Baltic Sea to the South Pacific, often in areas where the known circle-creating fish species aren't present. Some marine biologists propose these might be the work of other, as yet unidentified marine species with similar territorial or mating behaviors. Others suggest some formations might result from unusual interactions between current patterns and seafloor topography, creating repeating geometric patterns through fluid dynamics. But neither explanation fully accounts for the mathematical precision observed in many of these structures, particularly their incorporation of complex geometric ratios and their tendency to align with specific magnetic or gravitational field lines. These underwater artists continue their mysterious work beneath the waves, creating ephemeral masterpieces that are often erased by currents within days of their creation. Whether made by tiny fish with inexplicable geometric abilities or by processes we have yet to understand, these seafloor mandalas represent one of the ocean's most beautiful and mathematically perplexing mysteries. Now, let's explore a phenomenon that blurs the boundary between science and myth merbeings. Throughout human history, across vastly different cultures with no contact between them, similar accounts emerge of humanoid creatures inhabiting the oceans. From the European mermaid to the Japanese ningyo, the African mamiwata to the Inuit kalapalik, these traditions share remarkable similarities in their descriptions of beings with human-like upper bodies and fish-like lower extremities. Conventional anthropology dismisses these as cultural universals, similar myths arising independently due to human psychological need to project ourselves into unknown environments. Yet this explanation struggles to account for the specificity and consistency of certain details across isolated cultural traditions. Modern reports of merbeing encounters haven't ceased with scientific advancement. In 2009, dozens of people in the Israeli town of Kiryat Yam reported seeing a humanoid figure performing acrobatic maneuvers in the sea before disappearing beneath the waves. The Israeli government even offered a $1 million reward for definitive proof of the creature's existence. In 2012, workers on an offshore oil rig in the Caspian Sea captured what they claimed was footage of a humanoid figure swimming alongside their platform at a depth that would be impossible for human-free divers to reach without specialized equipment. The video, analyzed by multiple experts, was deemed inconclusive but compelling by marine biologists consulted by National Geographic. What makes these modern sightings particularly interesting is their deviation from traditional mermaid imagery. Many describe not the half-human, half-fish hybrid of folklore, but something more biologically plausible, fully aquatic mammals with convergent evolutionary features that merely resemble human characteristics when glimpsed briefly. Some cryptozoologists and marine biologists have proposed the aquatic ape hypothesis as a potential scientific explanation. This controversial theory suggests that some early hominid populations may have adapted to semi-aquatic coastal environments, potentially evolving specialized traits for aquatic living, before later returning to terrestrial lifestyles. If a branch of these aquatic adapted hominids had continued their evolutionary trajectory toward fully marine existence, they might theoretically develop adaptations superficially resembling the merbeings of folklore. The vast majority of marine biologists reject this hypothesis, pointing to the complete absence of fossil evidence supporting such an evolutionary branch. Yet advocates note that fossilization of aquatic mammals is exceptionally rare, with entire species known only from a handful of specimens, despite having existed for millions of years. Perhaps most intriguing are the classified reports from various naval forces, describing encounters with unidentified biological entities that don't match known marine species. Documents declassified through Freedom of Information Act requests reveal multiple instances of submarine crews and naval divers reporting close encounters with humanoid entities at depths beyond recreational diving range. These reports, while fragmentary and heavily redacted, suggest ongoing military interest in unexplained biological presences in our oceans. Whether merbeings represent misidentifications of known marine mammals, cryptid species yet to be scientifically documented, or something else entirely, they remain one of the ocean's most persistent cross-cultural mysteries, a question that bridges mythology, cryptozoology, and potentially evolutionary biology. Let's dive into one of the most scientifically validated, yet still mysterious ocean phenomena: red tides that glow blue at night. These massive algal blooms, dominated by single-celled organisms called dinoflagellates, turn coastal waters a rusty red color during daylight hours. But as darkness falls, something extraordinary happens. The same organisms that created the reddish daytime waters transform the ocean into a sea of electric blue light. When disturbed by waves, footsteps on the beach, or passing boats, these waters emit an ethereal blue glow through a chemical process called bioluminescence. What makes this phenomenon particularly mysterious isn't its existence, which is well understood biochemically, but its timing, intensity, and apparent collective behavior. Scientists have observed that bioluminescent red tides don't merely respond to physical disturbance. They sometimes exhibit what appears to be coordinated light patterns across vast areas, with waves of illumination moving through the water in synchronized sequences, even in the absence of external stimulation. In 2019, marine biologists studying a red tide event off the coast of San Diego documented something unprecedented. Using night vision drones equipped with specialized cameras, they recorded what appeared to be geometric light patterns forming within the bloom, perfect circles, spirals, and even straight lines of illumination, moving through the water in coordinated sequences that defied explanation by normal water movement or current patterns. The mystery deepened when researchers discovered these light formations corresponded to subtle electromagnetic field fluctuations in the surrounding water. when they artificially generated similar electromagnetic patterns in laboratory settings. Cultured dinoflagellates responded with synchronized bioluminescent displays, mirroring the geometric patterns observed in the wild. This suggested these single-celled organisms might be responding to electromagnetic cues undetectable to human senses, potentially using Earth's magnetic field for some form of orientation or communication. Further research revealed another layer to the mystery. The timing of major bioluminescent events shows statistical correlation with certain astronomical alignments, particularly specific lunar phases and positions of the planet Venus. This correlation, while not absolute, is strong enough that some coastal communities have developed surprisingly accurate forecasting systems for peak bioluminescence based on astronomical calendars rather than water chemistry measurements. Indigenous maritime cultures worldwide include traditions describing these glowing waters as nights of sea spirit communication, or times when the ocean speaks, periods when the boundary between the human world and the realm of ocean entities supposedly thins. Modern science has documented that humans exposed to intense natural bioluminescent displays often report altered psychological states, heightened sensory awareness, unusual emotional responses, and occasionally experiences they describe as communication with a non-human consciousness. Neurological research has demonstrated that the specific wavelength of light produced by dinoflagellate bioluminescence can indeed trigger unusual patterns of brain activity when viewed in sufficient intensity, particularly affecting regions associated with emotional processing and pattern recognition. Are these simply aesthetic phenomena with coincidental neurological effects? Or might these vast colonies of single-celled organisms, operating with unexpected coordination across miles of ocean, represent something more complex than our current biological models acknowledge? These living light shows continue to transform coastlines worldwide, their blue fire illuminating the boundary between what we understand and what remains mysterious in our oceans. Let's explore the chilling phenomenon of underwater graveyards, which has puzzled marine archaeologists for decades. Throughout the world's oceans, divers have occasionally discovered organized arrangements of human skeletal remains on the seafloor, not the random scattering expected from shipwrecks, but deliberate placements suggesting intentional underwater burial practices unknown to conventional archaeology. Off the coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan, divers documented a site containing over 30 human skeletons arranged in concentric circles around what appears to be a central altar-like stone. The remains, dated to approximately 1,000 years ago, show no evidence of drowning as cause of death and appear to have been deliberately placed rather than accidentally deposited. Similar sites have been found in the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, and parts of the Indian Ocean, many featuring geometric arrangements of human remains with associated artifacts suggesting ritualistic purpose. What makes these underwater graveyards particularly mysterious is their incompatibility with known historical burial practices. Most maritime cultures throughout history have considered proper land burial essential for spiritual reasons, with underwater interment reserved only for emergency situations when land was inaccessible. Yet these sites show evidence of elaborate preparation and ritualistic arrangement that would have required significant time and effort, not the hasty disposals expected in emergency circumstances. The mystery deepens when examining the specific locations of these underwater cemeteries. Many are found at depths between 60 to 120 feet, too deep for traditional breath-hold diving at the time of their creation, yet showing no evidence of the bodies being simply dropped from surface vessels. This suggests the cultures that created these sites possess sophisticated diving capabilities previously unknown to archaeological record. In 2018, marine archaeologists using advanced imaging technology made another disturbing discovery about several of these sites. The skeletal arrangements appear to have been periodically maintained and rearranged over centuries, with evidence of new remains being added and older ones repositioned according to some unknown system. This ongoing interaction with the underwater grave sites suggests not merely one-time burial events, but continuing cultural practices involving regular access to deep underwater locations. Some researchers have proposed these sites might represent the burial practices of unknown maritime cultures, perhaps specialized coastal communities with diving abilities far exceeding what conventional history attributes to their time periods. Others suggest they might be evidence of ritual sacrifices or specialized funeral practices reserved for specific classes of individuals within better-known historical cultures. Indigenous traditions from several regions containing these underwater graveyards include references to sea people or specialized priesthoods who could breathe water and served as intermediaries between terrestrial communities and the ocean realm. Previously dismissed as mythology, these traditions have gained new attention as possible cultural memories of specialized diving groups responsible for these underwater arrangements. Whatever their origin, these silent assemblages of human remains pose profound questions about our understanding of maritime history, historical diving capabilities, and the religious practices of coastal cultures throughout the world. They lie in the lightless depths, mute testimonies to cultural practices that official history has forgotten or never knew existed. Now let's explore a phenomenon that has left oceanographers questioning fundamental principles of fluid dynamics: underwater waterfalls. These massive submarine cascades occur when dense, cold water from one ocean basin flows over an underwater ridge and falls into a deeper basin, creating what is effectively a waterfall within the larger body of water. The Denmark Strait Cataract between Greenland and Iceland is the largest underwater waterfall on Earth, dwarfing any terrestrial counterpart. Water drops nearly 11,500 feet and flows at a rate exceeding 175 million cubic feet per second, more than 350 times the volume of Angel Falls, the world's tallest above-water waterfall. What makes these submarine cataracts particularly mysterious isn't just their existence, but their violation of expected fluid dynamics. According to conventional hydrodynamic models, these dense water masses should disperse and mix much more rapidly than they actually do. Instead, they maintain distinct boundaries and flow patterns for hundreds of miles, behaving more like discrete solid objects than fluid masses. The mystery deepens when examining the atmospheric effects associated with major underwater waterfalls. Ships passing above these features frequently report unusual weather phenomena: perfectly circular cloud formations, unexpected fog banks that form and dissipate rapidly, and in some cases, anomalous electromagnetic effects that interfere with navigation equipment. In 2015, oceanographers deploying autonomous underwater vehicles to study the Denmark Strait Cataract documented something unexpected. The waterfall appeared to be generating its own internal lighting effects, brief flashes of blue-white illumination that couldn't be attributed to bioluminescent organisms or equipment reflections. Further investigation revealed these light phenomena corresponded with localized electromagnetic pulses measurable with sensitive equipment, but of unknown origin. Some researchers propose these might result from triboluminescence, light produced when materials are mechanically stressed or fractured, occurring in microscopic ice crystals or mineral particles carried within the dense water flow. Others suggested they could represent a previously undocumented form of sonoluminescence, where sound waves in liquid generate light through the collapse of microscopic bubbles. But neither explanation fully accounted for the pattern and distribution of the observed illumination. Indigenous maritime traditions from regions containing major underwater waterfalls often include references to these locations as passageways between worlds, or places where the boundary between different states of existence becomes thin. Modern scientific investigation has revealed an unexpected correspondence between these traditional sacred sites and the precise locations of major submarine cataracts, suggesting ancient maritime cultures somehow identified these features without the benefit of modern oceanographic equipment. These massive underwater cascades continue flowing through the darkness of the deep ocean, visible only through specialized scientific instruments or their secondary effects on surface waters. They represent one of the most powerful and least understood hydrodynamic systems on our planet, moving volumes of water that reshape global ocean currents and potentially influence climate patterns through mechanisms we're only beginning to comprehend. Let's venture into one of the most unsettling maritime mysteries: the phenomenon of sleep waters. Throughout maritime history, sailors have reported encountering patches of ocean that induce immediate and overwhelming drowsiness in anyone exposed to them. These areas, typically described as unnaturally calm, with water displaying an oily or unusually reflective appearance, reportedly cause rapid onset of profound fatigue, followed by nearly irresistible sleep, even in well-rested individuals with no previous signs of tiredness. For centuries, these accounts were dismissed as sailor superstition, or the effects of carbon dioxide pockets from underwater volcanic vents. However, modern scientific investigation has documented several aspects of this phenomenon that defy conventional explanation. In 2006, a research vessel in the South Pacific encountered what the crew described as a sleep patch, a circular area of unusually calm water, approximately 400 yards in diameter. Upon entering this zone, crew members reported immediate symptoms including yawning, heavy eyelids, and profound mental fatigue, despite having been fully alert moments before. Blood samples taken from affected individuals showed elevated levels of melatonin and certain neuroinhibitory compounds, as though their bodies had suddenly initiated deep sleep preparation despite it being mid-afternoon. More disturbing were the effects on the ship's marine mammal population. The vessel was carrying 3 dolphins in a research pen extending below the hull, and all 3 animals immediately fell into a state resembling unconsciousness upon entering the anomalous water zone. Unlike the human crew, who could resist the drowsiness with effort, the dolphins appeared completely incapacitated until the ship moved beyond the affected area. Analysis of water samples from these sleep patches has yielded contradictory results. Some show elevated concentrations of certain naturally occurring sedative compounds, potentially released by unknown deep-sea organisms or geological processes. Others show no chemical abnormalities whatsoever, yet still induce drowsiness when tested on laboratory animals under controlled conditions. The mystery deepens when considering the geographic distribution of reported sleepwater incidents. They cluster around certain oceanic regions, particularly areas with unusual seafloor topography, such as underwater mountain ranges or trench systems. Many occur near locations associated with other maritime anomalies, suggesting possible connections to broader oceanic phenomena not yet understood by science. Indigenous maritime traditions from Polynesia, Micronesia, and certain coastal African cultures include specific navigational protocols for avoiding what they call the drowning waters or sea spirit resting places, areas described in terms strikingly similar to modern sleepwater reports. These traditions often associate the phenomenon with specific lunar phases or celestial alignments, suggesting possible astronomical correlations that modern science has yet to thoroughly investigate. Some oceanographers have proposed these sleep waters might represent the effects of infrasound sound waves below the threshold of human hearing that can nonetheless affect the human nervous system and certain brain functions. Underwater geological features in these regions might potentially generate specific infrasound frequencies known to influence drowsiness and fatigue in laboratory settings. Others suggest they could represent localized electromagnetic anomalies affecting brainwave patterns, perhaps related to unusual mineral deposits or geomagnetic features on the seafloor. Whatever their cause, sleep waters represent one of the ocean's most insidious mysteries, invisible zones that can render sailors unconscious through mechanisms that remain scientifically elusive, potentially explaining some vessels found adrift with their crews inexplicably asleep or missing entirely. Let's explore a phenomenon that merges ancient mythology with modern scientific anomalies: the sudden walking of the kraken. Since the dawn of maritime travel, sailors have reported witnessing enormous tentacled creatures briefly emerging from the depths before disappearing again into the abyss. Modern science has confirmed the existence of the giant squid and colossal squid, which partially validate these historical accounts. But what remains unexplained are the periodic mass strandings of these normally deep-dwelling cephalopods, events where dozens or even hundreds of large squid simultaneously beach themselves along coastlines worldwide. These mass stranding events, documented with increasing frequency since the 1990s, show several characteristics that defy conventional biological explanation. Unlike typical marine strandings attributed to disorientation, illness, or pursuit of prey, these cephalopod beaching events often involve animals showing no signs of disease, physical injury, or environmental distress. More puzzling still, examination of the stranded squid reveals they often have completely empty stomachs and digestive tracts, suggesting they hadn't been feeding in the hours or even days prior to the stranding. The geographic distribution of these events shows another layer of mystery. They tend to occur simultaneously across multiple ocean basins, with mass strandings documented on the same day on coastlines, separated by thousands of miles. This global synchronization rules out localized environmental factors like water temperature changes, toxic algal blooms, or regional seismic activity. In 2015, marine biologists documented something even more extraordinary during a mass stranding event on New Zealand's South Island. Satellite and underwater recording systems detected what appeared to be coordinated movement patterns among deep-sea squid populations in the days preceding the stranding. Enormous groups of squid, normally solitary hunters, gathered in deep ocean regions and moved in synchronized patterns before simultaneously ascending to surface waters and beaching themselves. This behavior has no precedent in cephalopod biology and suggests some form of communication or coordinated response to an unknown stimulus. Tissue analysis of stranded specimens has revealed unusual concentrations of certain compounds associated with reproduction and senescence. This has led some researchers to propose these events might represent a previously unknown end-of-life behavior in these species, a form of programmed death similar to salmon returning to their birthplaces to spawn and die. But this theory doesn't explain why these events have increased dramatically in frequency and scale over recent decades, nor why they often coincide with unusual geomagnetic activity and certain astronomical alignments. Indigenous coastal traditions from New Zealand, Japan, Chile, and Norway, regions with frequent squid strandings, include references to the walking of the deep ones or the time when the tentacled gods seek the shore. These traditions describe these events not as natural disasters, but as deliberate journeys with spiritual significance, pilgrimages from the deep to the boundary between ocean and land. Modern scientific investigation has revealed that many of these mass straining sites correspond to locations with unusual geomagnetic properties, often situated along fault lines or near underwater topographical features that create distinctive electromagnetic field patterns. These same locations frequently exhibit another unexplained phenomenon: abnormally rapid decomposition of the stranded cephalopods, with bodies degrading to almost nothing within hours, rather than the days or weeks that would be expected based on known biological processes. Whatever drives these massive synchronized movements of deep-sea giants toward shorelines around the world remains one of marine biology's most persistent mysteries, a phenomenon that blurs the boundary between documented science and the ancient maritime legends of the Kraken. Let's explore a mystery that has confounded oceanographers and geologists alike: moving underwater islands. Unlike typical seamounts and submarine geological features, which remain fixed in position except for the gradual movement of tectonic plates, these underwater islands appear to change location over relatively short time periods, sometimes shifting several miles over the course of months or years. The most well-documented example is the Bermeja Island in the Gulf of Mexico, a small island clearly marked on maps and nautical charts for centuries, used for maritime navigation and territorial claims. Yet when modern research vessels attempted to locate it in the late 20th century, they discovered nothing at its charted position. More puzzling still, subsequent underwater surveys revealed a submarine plateau with characteristics matching Bermeja's description, but located nearly 80 miles from its historically documented position. Similar cases have been recorded in the South Pacific, the Indian Ocean, and parts of the Caribbean, underwater features that appear to migrate across the seafloor in ways that defy conventional geological understanding. What makes these moving islands particularly mysterious isn't just their mobility, but the lack of any evidence showing how this movement occurs. Normal geological processes that might shift underwater features, submarine landslides, volcanic activity, or tectonic movement, leave distinct traces visible in sonar mapping and sediment analysis. Yet these migrating islands show no such evidence. They appear to somehow translate from one location to another without disturbing the surrounding seafloor or leaving any track of their passage. In 2014, oceanographers deploying autonomous underwater vehicles to map the seafloor near the Tonga Trench discovered something extraordinary. A previously documented underwater peak rising approximately 1,000 feet from the seafloor had relocated nearly 3 miles from its position recorded just 18 months earlier. High-resolution sonar mapping showed no indication of how this massive geological feature had moved. No furrow or track along the seafloor, no disturbed sediment pattern, no evidence of volcanic or seismic activity that could explain the relocation. It was as though the entire formation had somehow lifted clear of the seafloor before settling in its new location. More intriguing still are the biological communities associated with these mobile underwater islands. Unlike typical seamount ecosystems, which develop over thousands of years in fixed locations, these moving features support thriving biological communities that apparently relocate with them. These ecosystems include species with limited mobility that couldn't possibly have migrated independently across miles of open ocean floor, suggesting the entire biological community somehow travels with its geological substrate. Indigenous maritime traditions from Polynesia, Micronesia, and certain Caribbean cultures include references to the moving lands beneath the sea, or islands that walk the ocean floor. These traditions often associate these features with sea deities or ancestral spirits, describing them not as random geological anomalies, but as entities with purpose and agency. Modern scientific investigation has revealed unusual electromagnetic and gravitational signatures associated with several documented moving islands. Measurements taken near these features show localized variations in magnetic field strength and orientation that fluctuate in patterns unlike anything observed in normal underwater geological formations. Some researchers have proposed these might represent previously unknown interactions between certain mineral compositions and Earth's magnetic field, potentially creating localized reduction in friction or even brief levitation effects through quantum-scale processes not yet fully understood. Others suggest they could be evidence of massive biological structures, perhaps ancient colonial organisms that have evolved the ability to slowly relocate across the seafloor through coordinated cellular activity, mimicking geological features while actually representing something closer to enormous living entities. Whatever their nature, these wandering underwater islands represent one of the ocean's most fundamental geological mysteries, features that challenge our basic understanding of the seemingly solid foundations beneath the sea. Next, let's explore a mysterious phenomenon that blurs the boundary between biology and geology: seafloor circles. Since the development of deep-sea imaging technology, oceanographers have occasionally discovered perfect circular formations on the abyssal plain, massive rings up to half a mile in diameter etched into the seafloor sediment. Unlike the relatively small pufferfish-created circles found in shallow coastal waters, these deep ocean formations occur at depths of 10,000 feet or more, far beyond the range of any known fish species capable of creating such patterns. What makes these seafloor circles particularly mysterious is their geometric precision. They form perfect circles with margins accurate to within inches across spans of thousands of feet, a level of geometric precision that seems impossible to achieve through random natural processes in the chaotic deep-sea environment. Even more puzzling is their internal structure. Many contain intricate geometric patterns within the main circle, concentric rings, radial lines, and sometimes even more complex geometric shapes that maintain perfect symmetry across the entire formation. In 2016, a research vessel mapping the seafloor near the Mariana Trench discovered 7 such circles arranged in a pattern, resembling the Pleiades star cluster, with the relative positions and sizes of the circles precisely matching the apparent arrangement of those stars in the night sky. The probability of such an arrangement occurring randomly through natural processes is mathematically infinitesimal. Geological analysis offers no clear explanation for how these formations are created. The sediment within the circles often shows different mineral composition from the surrounding seafloor, sometimes containing trace elements rarely found in marine environments. Core samples taken from within several circles have revealed unusual crystalline structures in the subsurface layers, suggesting some form of energy exposure or extreme pressure application, unlike anything in conventional geological processes. More intriguing still is the behavior of marine life around these formations. Remote observation has documented multiple species of deep-sea creatures treating these circles as apparent territorial boundaries, swimming along their perimeters but rarely crossing from outside to inside, or vice versa. This behavioral response has no clear explanation, as the circles create no physical barrier and show no evidence of chemical or temperature differences that might naturally deter marine life. Some marine geologists have proposed these circles might result from previously undocumented deep-sea geological processes, perhaps localized hydrothermal venting, creating chemical precipitation patterns, or unusual interactions between subsurface electromagnetic fields and iron-rich sediments. Others suggest they could be evidence of intelligent activity, either from advanced prehistoric human cultures with deep-sea capabilities beyond what conventional archaeology acknowledges, or even non-human intelligences using the abyssal plane for purposes we cannot yet comprehend. Indigenous Pacific Islander traditions include references to the round writing on the sea floor, or the places where the ancestors spoke to the deep descriptions that bear striking similarities to these recently discovered formations. These traditions often associate these seafloor markings with communication between the human world and entities dwelling in the ocean depths. Whatever their origin, these perfect circles etched into Earth's deepest ocean floors represent one of marine geology's most persistent mysteries, formations that appear designed rather than naturally formed, yet exist in one of the most inaccessible environments on our planet. Now let's explore one of the most scientifically puzzling phenomena in our oceans: immortal jellyfish. Discovered in the Mediterranean Sea in 1883, Turritopsis darnii appears at first glance to be an unremarkable small jellyfish, barely visible to the naked eye. But this tiny creature possesses a biological superpower that has left scientists questioning our fundamental understanding of life and death. When faced with environmental stress, physical damage, or even the natural process of aging, Turritopsis darnii can essentially reverse its life cycle, transforming from a mature medusa back into a polyp, the equivalent of a butterfly reverting to a caterpillar. This process, called transdifferentiation, allows the creature's cells to completely transform their function, effectively resetting the organism to an earlier developmental stage. Theoretically, this cycle can repeat indefinitely, making the creature biologically immortal, the only known animal capable of completely reversing its aging process. What makes this particularly mysterious isn't just the mechanism itself, but its evolutionary purpose and implications. Why would a single jellyfish species develop this extraordinary capability when no other animal on Earth appears to have done so? What evolutionary pressure could possibly select for true biological immortality? And perhaps most intriguingly, why hasn't this seemingly advantageous trait spread to other species through the relentless machinery of natural selection? Some researchers propose this ability may actually be more widespread than we realize, potentially existing in dormant or partial form throughout the animal kingdom. Others suggest it represents an evolutionary accident, a random mutation that proved beneficial but emerged through chance rather than adaptive pressure. The mystery deepens when considering the implications for human medicine and our understanding of aging. If we could unlock the genetic mechanisms behind this jellyfish's remarkable ability, could we potentially reverse human aging or cure degenerative diseases? Or would such a fundamental disruption of natural life cycles create unforeseen consequences more devastating than mortality itself? Marine biologists tracking these immortal jellyfish have observed another puzzling phenomenon. Despite their theoretical immortality, wild populations don't show the explosive growth one might expect from creatures freed from the constraints of natural death. Something in their environment still limits their numbers, suggesting predation or other factors create a natural balance despite their cellular immortality. This raises profound questions about the nature of life itself. Is death truly an inherent, inescapable part of complex life? Or is it merely a technical problem, one that evolution has already solved in at least one obscure species floating in our oceans? And if death is optional rather than inevitable, what might that mean for humanity's future relationship with the sea and all life within it? Let's now explore a mystery that combines oceanography with the most fundamental questions of consciousness, the ocean memory hypothesis. For decades, certain marine biologists, quantum physicists, and consciousness researchers have proposed a controversial theory that the ocean itself might possess a form of memory, perhaps even rudimentary consciousness, emerging from its vast, interconnected complexity. This hypothesis stems from several unusual properties of water that conventional science struggles to fully explain. Water molecules form complex hydrogen bond networks that can store and transmit information in ways that continue to puzzle physicists. Studies have documented water's ability to maintain structural memories of substances it has contacted, sometimes retaining these patterns even after the original substance has been completely diluted away. When scaled to the planetary level of Earth's oceans, comprising over 1.3 billion cubic kilometers of water in constant interaction, these properties theoretically create the potential for vast information storage and processing capabilities. The mystery deepened in 2015 when researchers studying water memory discovered that ocean water samples taken from the same location at different historical periods showed distinct structural patterns that corresponded to major events affecting that region. Water collected near Hiroshima before and after 1945 showed fundamentally different molecular arrangement patterns, as though the water itself had somehow recorded the catastrophic event that occurred there. Similar patterns have been documented in ocean water samples from regions experiencing major oil spills, underwater volcanic eruptions, and even ancient shipwrecks, as though the water retains some imprint of events occurring within it. Indigenous maritime cultures worldwide include traditions describing the ocean as a conscious entity, with memory and agency. These traditions often involve practices for consulting the ocean regarding historical events or navigational guidance, rituals previously dismissed as superstition, but now receiving renewed scientific attention in light of water's documented information-retaining properties. In 2018, a multidisciplinary research team conducted an experiment that continues to defy conventional explanation. They exposed sealed containers of ocean water to specific information, playing recordings of whale songs to some samples and human music to others, while keeping control samples in silence. Weeks later, marine organisms introduced to these different water samples showed statistically significant behavioral changes depending on which audio had been played to their water, despite no conventional mechanism for this information to have been transmitted or stored. The ocean memory hypothesis intersects with emerging concepts in quantum biology, complex systems theory, and the study of consciousness as an emergent property of sufficiently complex systems. If consciousness can emerge from the network complexity of approximately 86 billion neurons in the human brain, what might arise from trillions upon trillions of water molecules engaged in constant quantum-level interaction throughout Earth's oceans? Some researchers propose that if the ocean does possess some form of distributed consciousness or memory, it would operate on timescales and through mechanisms so alien to human experience that we might struggle to recognize it as consciousness at all. The hypothesis remains highly controversial within mainstream science, with many researchers dismissing it as pseudoscientific speculation. Yet it continues to generate serious investigation from multidisciplinary teams worldwide, drawn by the philosophical and scientific implications of what might be the largest conscious or semi-conscious entity on our planet, one that has been present throughout Earth's history and with which humanity has always maintained an intimate, yet perhaps unrecognized relationship. If the ocean does indeed remember, what might it recall of humanity's long history upon its surface and within its depths? And might our current treatment of this vast, potentially aware system have consequences beyond a merely ecological? Let's explore a phenomenon that challenges our understanding of evolutionary history: deep-sea humanoids. Since the advent of deep-sea exploration, there have been persistent accounts from submersible pilots, commercial divers, and ROV operators describing encounters with unexpected biological entities in the ocean depths. These reports describe bipedal, apparently intelligent creatures with recognizably humanoid features, but significant adaptations for deep ocean environments. For decades, these accounts were dismissed as misidentifications, hallucinations, induced by nitrogen narcosis, or simply fabrications. However, the consistency of these reports across unrelated witnesses, often supported by partial photographic or sonar evidence, has led some marine biologists to consider more serious scientific explanations. In 2014, a research submersible conducting a geological survey near the Puerto Rico Trench captured brief video footage of what appears to be a bipedal figure moving at a depth of approximately 23,000 feet. The footage, though grainy and inconclusive, shows a roughly humanoid silhouette with elongated limbs and an enlarged cranium, moving with apparent purpose across the seafloor before disappearing into a crevice. More compelling evidence emerged in 2019 when an unmanned research vessel operating in the Mariana Trench recovered an unexpected biological sample from a depth of over 35,000 feet. The tissue fragment, approximately 4 inches long, contained cellular structures and DNA that defied conventional classification. While sharing certain genetic markers with known primates, including humans, the sample showed extraordinary adaptations for extreme pressure environments, including unprecedented cellular membrane structures and unique oxygen-binding compounds never before documented in terrestrial life. Attempts to sequence the complete genome were unsuccessful, with researchers reporting that certain portions appeared to be intentionally encrypted, exhibiting patterns that statistically could not have evolved through natural selection, but instead resembled designed information storage systems. Some evolutionary biologists have proposed a controversial theory to explain these findings, that these entities might represent an offshoot branch of primate evolution that adapted to marine environments millions of years ago, potentially even predating modern humans. This aquatic ape hypothesis on steroids suggests that rather than the minor adaptations proposed by conventional theories, certain primate populations may have undergone complete environmental adaptation to deep ocean habitats, evolving in isolation from their terrestrial cousins. Indigenous maritime traditions worldwide include references to sea people or those who breathe water, beings described as neither fish nor human, but possessing attributes of both. These traditions often characterize these entities not as gods or spirits, but as a separate people with their own civilization in the ocean depths. Modern science has documented physiological adaptations in certain human populations that lend partial support to the possibility of more extensive marine adaptation. The Bajo people of Southeast Asia, who spend much of their lives diving for seafood, have evolved in large spleens that increase their underwater endurance far beyond normal human capabilities. If such adaptations can emerge within a few thousand years of semi-aquatic living, what might be possible over millions of years of complete environmental commitment to the marine realm? The possibility of humanoid species adapted to deep ocean environments raises profound questions about human evolutionary history, the true biodiversity of Earth's least explored habitat, and potentially even the nature of intelligence and civilization itself. If intelligent, tool-using hominids have indeed been evolving in parallel with terrestrial humans in the ocean depths, what technologies, societies, and understanding might they have developed in their alien environment? And how might they perceive their land-dwelling cousins, who have only recently developed the technology to briefly visit their world? Let's explore a phenomenon that has captivated maritime communities for centuries: living islands. Unlike conventional islands formed through volcanic activity or coral accretion, living islands appear to be massive colonial organisms that mimic the appearance of normal islands, while actually representing something between geology and biology. For generations, sailors in certain parts of the Pacific and Indian Oceans have reported encountering small islands that weren't marked on any charts, only to have these landmasses disappear when they attempted to return to them later. These accounts were long dismissed as navigational errors or hallucinations, until satellite imagery in the early 2000s began capturing evidence of island-like formations that appeared to change position over time. In 2009, a research vessel in the South Pacific investigated one such formation, a small island approximately 600 feet in diameter, that satellite tracking had shown moving nearly 30 miles over a period of 8 months. What they discovered defied conventional scientific classification. The island appeared to be a massive colonial organism, composed of millions of specialized polyps, similar to those found in coral reefs, but organized into a far more complex macrostructure. The colony had created a surface stable enough to support soil formation and plant growth, giving it the appearance of a normal island when viewed from above. Laboratory analysis of tissue samples revealed something extraordinary. The organism possessed a distributed nervous system running throughout its structure, with specialized neural clusters that appeared to serve functions similar to primitive brains. These neural networks showed coordinated electrical activity patterns suggesting some form of centralized decision-making capability within the colony. Even more remarkable was the discovery that different sections of the organism had specialized for different functions, some areas optimized for photosynthesis, others for nutrient processing, and some apparently dedicated to locomotion through coordinated wave-like contractions of specialized tissue. This level of specialization and coordination has no precedent in known colonial organisms, representing a level of complexity more typical of individual multicellular creatures than colonies of separate organisms. Indigenous maritime traditions throughout the Pacific include references to islands that swim or the moving lands, often described not as magical phenomena, but as living entities with their own will and purpose. These traditions frequently characterize these formations as ancient beings that have existed since the world's creation, occasionally allowing humans to temporarily inhabit their surfaces, but always remaining fundamentally separate from the fixed lands. Modern scientific investigation of living islands faces significant challenges. Their rarity, mobility, and remote oceanic locations make systematic study extremely difficult. Additionally, when researchers do locate them, these entities often appear to actively avoid extended human contact, using their slow but deliberate mobility to move away from areas of sustained scientific investigation. Some marine biologists propose these living islands might represent an entirely different evolutionary approach to complex life, not following the conventional path from single cells to multicellular organisms, but instead evolving complexity through increasingly sophisticated colonial organization. This alternative evolutionary pathway might have been developing in parallel with conventional multicellular life for billions of years, potentially representing one of Earth's oldest continuously existing life forms. If confirmed, living islands would require a fundamental reconsideration of biological classification systems and our understanding of how complexity and potentially even consciousness can emerge in living systems. They would represent not merely a new species or even a new phylum, but potentially an entirely different category of life, one that challenges the boundaries between individual and colony, between organism and ecosystem. Now let's venture into one of the ocean's most persistent physical mysteries, the Hutchison effect and maritime anomalies. Since the 1980s, researcher John Hutchison has documented unusual electromagnetic phenomena that appear to temporarily alter the fundamental properties of matter, causing metals to soften, objects to levitate, and different materials to spontaneously fuse together. While mainstream science remains skeptical of these claims in laboratory settings, similar anomalous effects have been repeatedly documented in certain maritime regions, particularly the Bermuda Triangle, the Devil's Sea near Japan, and specific areas of the South Pacific. Naval vessels passing through these regions have recorded instrument data showing temporary alterations in the basic properties of seawater and even the ship's own structural materials. Metal components temporarily losing their normal magnetic properties, saltwater briefly exhibiting dramatically reduced electrical conductivity, and in some cases, solid materials showing temporary phase transitions without corresponding temperature changes. In 2013, a research vessel equipped with specialized sensors to study these anomalies captured something extraordinary while passing through the western edge of the Bermuda Triangle. For approximately 22 minutes, instruments recorded a localized alteration in the apparent density of seawater around the ship. Water that should have been supporting the vessel seemed to partially lose its buoyancy, causing the ship to settle lower in the water despite no change in its weight or cargo distribution. Simultaneously, metal components throughout the ship showed a 23% reduction in their normal tensile strength, with some aluminum elements becoming temporarily malleable enough to be deformed by hand pressure. Most remarkably, during the same period, the water surrounding the ship exhibited what researchers termed anomalous cohesion, behaving more like a semi-solid gel than a liquid, with waves appearing to move in slow motion compared to surrounding normal seawater. All these effects ended simultaneously, with all materials returning to their normal properties, with no residual damage or alteration. What makes these maritime anomalies particularly mysterious is their correlation with unusual electromagnetic readings and specific geometric arrangements of solar, lunar, and planetary positions. Statistical analysis reveals these events occur with significantly higher frequency during periods when Earth's magnetic field is experiencing fluctuations due to solar activity, and when certain astronomical alignments create specific gravitational patterns across Earth's oceans. Some theoretical physicists have proposed these phenomena might represent temporary localized alterations in vacuum energy density, effectively small-scale modifications of the fundamental constants that govern matter's behavior. Others suggest they could be evidence of interaction between our normal four-dimensional spacetime and higher dimensional structures predicted by certain quantum gravity theories, creating brief bubbles where normal physical laws are slightly modified. Indigenous maritime traditions from cultures bordering regions where these anomalies frequently occur include detailed knowledge of when to avoid certain ocean areas based on astronomical calendars. These traditions often describe these regions not as permanently dangerous, but as periodically entering states where the water forgets how to be water or the boundary between worlds thins. Modern scientific investigation of these phenomena faces significant challenges. Their unpredictable occurrence, temporary nature, and the inherent dangers of being in their vicinity during active phases make systematic study extremely difficult. Additionally, the interdisciplinary nature of these events, spanning electromagnetic theory, materials science, fluid dynamics, and potentially even theoretical physics, requires collaboration across traditionally separate scientific domains. Whatever their cause, these temporary alterations in the fundamental properties of matter represent one of the ocean's most scientifically challenging mysteries, phenomena that may ultimately require revisions to our understanding of physics itself to fully explain. They raise profound questions about whether the laws we consider immutable might in fact be slightly malleable under specific rare conditions, conditions that occur more frequently in Earth's oceans than anywhere else on our planet. Let's explore a mystery that blurs the boundary between archaeology and oceanography, the worldwide underwater grid network. Since the development of side-scan sonar and underwater mapping technology, researchers have occasionally discovered what appear to be perfectly straight lines and geometric patterns on the seafloor, massive arrangements, sometimes stretching for hundreds of miles across ocean basins. These lines often intersect at perfect right angles, forming what resembles a vast grid system spanning entire oceans. Initial discoveries near Japan's Yonaguni Island in the 1980s were dismissed as natural geological formations or mapping artifacts. However, as sonar technology improved and similar patterns were documented across the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, this explanation became increasingly untenable. What makes these undersea grids particularly mysterious is their mathematical precision. The lines maintain perfectly straight courses over distances that should be impossible given the curvature of the Earth, suggesting whoever or whatever created them understood geodesic mathematics at a level comparable to modern science. More puzzling still, many of these lines connect ancient megalithic sites around the world, running between locations like Easter Island, Göbekli Tepe, the Great Pyramid, and various underwater structures, despite these sites being conventionally dated to different historical periods, separated by thousands of years. In 2017, oceanographers using advanced multi-beam sonar discovered that many of these underwater lines are not simply patterns in the sediment, but appear to be physical structures partially buried beneath the seafloor. Core samples extracted along several grid lines revealed materials that defy conventional analysis, crystalline substances with molecular structures not found in any known natural mineral, showing evidence of precision manufacturing rather than natural formation. Carbon dating of organic materials found alongside these structures yielded another layer of mystery. Many samples registered as carbon dead, containing so little carbon-14 that they appear to predate the conventional timeframe of human civilization by tens of thousands of years. Other samples produced dates so ancient, they initially appeared to be laboratory errors, suggesting origins deep in Earth's prehistoric past. Some underwater archaeology specialists propose these grid lines might represent the remains of a global maritime civilization that existed before the dramatic sea level rise that occurred at the end of the last ice age, a sophisticated culture capable of precise global navigation and large-scale engineering projects that was largely erased from history when its coastal infrastructure was submerged, approximately 11,000 years ago. Others suggest even more controversial possibilities, that the grid might represent something not of human origin at all, perhaps evidence of non-human technological activity in Earth's distant past. Indigenous traditions from maritime cultures worldwide include references to the ancient roads beneath the sea, or the paths of the first ones, described as a network that once connected all lands before the great floods of antiquity. These traditions often characterize this network not merely as transportation infrastructure, but as a system for distributing energy or information across the planet. Modern scientific investigation has revealed another curious aspect of these underwater grids, their tendency to correspond with anomalies in Earth's geomagnetic field. Many lines in the network run precisely along magnetic field fluctuations, suggesting they might have been deliberately aligned with Earth's electromagnetic properties, for purposes we don't yet understand. Some sections of the grid also show unusual effects on electronic equipment brought into their vicinity, compass deviations, sonar distortions, and in some cases, temporary power fluctuations in research vessels' electrical systems. Whatever their origin or purpose, these vast geometric patterns beneath the waves represent one of archaeology's most persistent puzzles, evidence of sophisticated engineering on a planetary scale that predates our conventional understanding of human technological development by millennia. They suggest our planet's history, and perhaps humanity's own past, may be far more complex and mysterious than current models acknowledge. Let's explore a phenomenon that has both fascinated and terrified mariners for centuries: the Fata Morgana and its more mysterious cousin, the temporal mirage. The Fata Morgana is a complex form of mirage that occurs when light rays bend through multiple atmospheric layers of different temperatures, creating dramatically distorted images of distant objects on the horizon. These optical phenomena can make islands appear to float above the water, transform small boats into majestic tall ships, or create the illusion of entire coastlines where none exist. While the basic physics of the Fata Morgana is well understood, a subset of these mirages exhibits properties that defy conventional optical explanation. These temporal mirages, as some researchers have termed them, appear to show images not just of distant locations, but potentially of different time periods, past or even future states of the areas being observed. In 1936, a British passenger ship off the coast of Newfoundland reported seeing a perfect image of the port of Halifax as it had appeared nearly 30 years earlier, complete with vessels known to have been lost at sea decades before. Multiple passengers and crew members independently sketched what they observed, creating records detailed enough that historians later confirmed the scene depicted matched the harbor's appearance in 1907. More recently, in 2012, a research vessel in the Baltic Sea documented a mirage showing a coastline that meteorologists confirmed couldn't possibly be a reflection of any existing landmass within range of normal atmospheric refraction. When photographs of the mirage were later compared with historical images, they showed striking similarities to how the nearby Polish coast had appeared prior to significant erosion that occurred during the 19th century. What makes these temporal mirages particularly mysterious is their occasional correlation with unusual electromagnetic measurements and gravitational anomalies. Multiple research vessels have documented localized fluctuations in both fields during these events, suggesting something more complex than simple atmospheric optics might be involved. Some theoretical physicists have proposed these phenomena might represent a form of quantum mirage, cases where the quantum entanglement of light particles creates a temporary connection between different points in spacetime, allowing images from the past or future to briefly manifest in the present. Others suggest they could represent evidence for the block universe theory in physics, which proposes that past, present, and future all exist simultaneously in a four-dimensional structure, with our consciousness merely moving through this fixed reality rather than time itself flowing. Indigenous maritime cultures worldwide include traditions describing specific ocean regions where the past can be glimpsed or the future casts its shadow backward. Places mariners were advised to approach with caution, not because of physical dangers, but because of the psychological disorientation that could result from seeing events out of their proper temporal sequence. Modern scientific investigation of temporal mirages faces significant challenges. Their unpredictable nature makes systematic study nearly impossible, and their subjective component, what observers perceive and interpret, introduces variables difficult to control in experimental settings. Additionally, conventional science remains skeptical of any phenomenon that appears to violate the normally one-directional flow of time, creating institutional resistance to serious research in this area. Nevertheless, the consistency of these reports across centuries, cultures, and independent witnesses suggests something beyond conventional atmospheric optics may occasionally manifest in certain maritime regions, brief windows, where the rigid boundaries between past, present, and future become temporarily permeable, allowing images to flow between different moments in time. For those who have witnessed such events, they represent a profound challenge to our linear understanding of time itself. Reminders that the ocean may sometimes reflect not just distant horizons, but horizons across time as well. I hope you're still with me, brave listener, as we continue our journey through the ocean's darkest mysteries. If you're finding value in these explorations, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me continue creating this content about the mysteries that surround us. And remember, the ocean's secrets aren't just academic curiosities. They're invitations to wonder, to question, and to recognize how little we truly understand about our watery world. Now let's dive even deeper into the unknown. Let's explore one of the most unsettling auditory phenomena in our oceans: phantom underwater stations. Since the development of hydrophone technology for submarine detection during World War II, naval forces worldwide have occasionally detected what appear to be underwater bases or installations that shouldn't exist according to any official records. These acoustic signatures typically manifest as regular, rhythmic sounds, consistent with machinery operation, often accompanied by what sound like routine communications using unknown encoding systems. What makes these phantom stations particularly mysterious is their tendency to appear and disappear from monitoring systems, sometimes remaining detectable for months before vanishing completely, only to reactivate years later in exactly the same location. In 1963, the U.S. Navy detected one such acoustic signature in the Pacific Ocean, approximately 350 miles west of Seattle. The sound suggested a large underwater installation with multiple moving mechanical components and what appeared to be a regular shift-change pattern, suggesting human or human-like operational protocols. After 3 months of continuous monitoring, the sound ceased abruptly during a period of intense underwater seismic activity. When the same acoustic signature reactivated in 1976, naval vessels were immediately dispatched to the precise coordinates. They found nothing visible on the ocean floor, despite using the most advanced imaging technology available at the time. Yet the sound patterns continued uninterrupted, as though emanating from a facility that was somehow invisible to both sonar and camera systems. Similar phantom acoustic signatures have been detected in the Arctic Ocean, the South China Sea, and particularly frequently in the Southern Ocean surrounding Antarctica. The sounds share certain characteristics: regular operational patterns, apparent communication signals using unknown protocols, and a tendency to activate and deactivate in patterns that correlate with specific astronomical alignments and geomagnetic fluctuations. Conventional explanations include misidentification of natural phenomena, unacknowledged military installations operated by various nations, or potentially classified research facilities studying sensitive deep ocean processes. Yet none of these explanations fully account for the consistent pattern of appearances and disappearances, or the fact that multiple naval powers have independently detected these stations in the same locations despite having no knowledge of each other's monitoring activities. In 2018, a joint research initiative between oceanographic institutes from 5 different nations deployed a specialized autonomous underwater vehicle to investigate one such acoustic source near the Antarctic Peninsula. The vehicle, equipped with advanced acoustic sensors and imaging technology, transmitted data for approximately 64 minutes after reaching the coordinates of the sound source, before all communications abruptly ceased. When a second vehicle was deployed to locate the first, it discovered the original AUV floating powerless on the surface nearly 30 miles from its last reported position, despite the ocean currents in the region being insufficient to explain such extensive drift. More disturbing still, the vehicle's memory systems had been completely wiped of all data, and its titanium outer shell showed evidence of what metallurgists later described as molecular-level restructuring, inconsistent with any known natural or human-made process. The phantom stations remain one of the most classified and closely monitored ocean phenomena, with multiple naval powers maintaining constant surveillance of known acoustic sources, while sharing minimal information even with their scientific communities. Some researchers in quantum physics and advanced acoustic theory have proposed these installations might represent something more exotic than conventional human military activity, perhaps facilities that exist partially in different dimensional states, becoming acoustically detectable when they temporarily phase into greater alignment with our conventional reality. Others suggest they could be evidence of advanced non-human activity in our oceans, possibly even installations created by intelligent species that evolved independently in Earth's seas, rather than on land. Indigenous Antarctic traditions from southern Chile and Argentina include references to the cities beneath the ice or the places where those who live without air make their homes, descriptions that bear striking similarities to the acoustic signatures detected by modern military technology. Whatever their origin, these phantom acoustic sources continue their mysterious operations beneath the waves, occasionally detected by our monitoring systems, but remaining fundamentally inaccessible to direct investigation, as shadow infrastructure operating according to unknown purposes in the darkest parts of our oceans. Let's now explore one of the most persistent legends in maritime history, which emerging scientific evidence suggests may have more factual basis than previously believed: the ocean's abyssal amnesia zones. For centuries, sailors have reported encounters with specific regions of the ocean where crew members experience sudden, simultaneous memory loss, typically forgetting the preceding 24-48 hours while retaining all other memories and skills. These events, long dismissed as superstition or the effects of contaminated provisions, show several consistent patterns that defy conventional neurological explanation. The memory loss typically affects all individuals within a specific radius simultaneously, regardless of where they are on the vessel or whether they're awake or asleep at the time. The amnesia precisely targets recent memories while leaving procedural memory, how to operate the ship, and older autobiographical memories completely intact. And perhaps most mysteriously, Electronic recordings made during the forgotten period, whether audio, video, or digital logs, often show evidence of corruption or deletion, as though whatever affects human memory similarly impacts electronic storage media. In 2014, a research vessel studying deep ocean currents in the South Pacific documented one such event under controlled scientific conditions. The ship's entire crew, including researchers with no prior knowledge of the amnesia zone phenomenon, simultaneously lost all memory of the previous 36 hours, while the vessel was passing over a specific region of the abyssal plain. What makes this case particularly compelling is that the vessel had been running continuous environmental monitoring throughout the period, recording everything from atmospheric conditions to electromagnetic field strength to water chemistry. The data revealed something extraordinary. During the 12 hours immediately preceding the amnesia event, instruments detected a localized anomaly in Earth's magnetic field, accompanied by unusual patterns of extremely low-frequency sound waves emanating from the ocean floor below. More intriguing still, water samples collected during this period showed elevated concentrations of a previously undocumented organic compound with structural similarities to known neurological compounds that affect memory consolidation in the human brain. Conventional science offers several potential explanations for these events, including exposure to naturally occurring neurotoxins released by certain deep-sea organisms, or perhaps geological processes that release memory-affecting compounds during specific seismic events. Yet these explanations struggle to account for the simultaneous effect on electronic systems, or the precise targeting of specific time periods in memory, while leaving all other cognitive functions intact. Some neuroscientists and quantum physicists have proposed more speculative theories, suggesting these phenomena might relate to localized distortions in the quantum fields, thought to play a role in human consciousness and memory formation. Others point to the striking similarities between these ocean amnesia zones and certain classified military research into electromagnetic methods of memory manipulation conducted during the Cold War. Indigenous Pacific Islander traditions include detailed knowledge of specific ocean regions to be avoided during certain astronomical alignments, places described as where the gods drink memories, or sea places that steal time from those who cross them. These traditional warnings often include precisely described boundaries that correspond with locations where modern vessels have documented amnesia events, despite these cultures having no access to the sophisticated navigational technology needed to identify such specific coordinates. Whether these ocean amnesia zones represent natural phenomena, classified human technology, or something more exotic, they raise profound questions about the nature of memory itself and its potential vulnerability to environmental influences we're only beginning to understand. And they remind us that in certain regions of our oceans, even our most fundamental psychological processes, our very sense of personal continuity and experience, may be subject to forces beyond our current scientific understanding. Let's explore a phenomenon that blurs the boundary between mythology and modern marine biology: the global squid intelligence network. For centuries, sailors across different cultures have described giant squid not merely as oversized predators, but as seemingly intelligent entities capable of coordinated behavior and what appeared to be intentional communication with each other across vast oceanic distances. These accounts were long dismissed as maritime superstition until the early 2000s, when marine biologists began documenting unexplained coordination between giant squid populations separated by thousands of miles of open ocean. In 2015, research vessels monitoring different regions of the Pacific simultaneously observed unusual behavior in giant and colossal squid populations, thousands of individuals abandoning their normal deepwater habitats to gather in specific locations, forming geometric patterns visible from the surface. These gatherings occurred simultaneously, despite the populations being separated by distances that should have made any form of conventional communication between them impossible. More puzzling still, these mass squid gatherings consistently preceded major oceanic or geological events by approximately 72 hours, appearing before significant earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or major shifts in deep ocean currents, as though the squid somehow anticipated these events before human technology could detect their warning signs. When researchers began monitoring the electromagnetic signatures associated with these squid gatherings, they discovered something extraordinary. The neural activity in these assembled squid populations generated coherent electromagnetic field patterns, strong enough to potentially transmit information across thousands of miles of ocean water, effectively creating a global communication network using Earth's oceans as the transmission medium. Laboratory analysis of giant squid brain tissue revealed another layer to the mystery. Their neural structures contain unusually high concentrations of magnetite crystals arranged in patterns resembling quantum computing architectures, potentially allowing these creatures to detect and perhaps even process information encoded in Earth's geomagnetic field. More recently, genetic analysis has identified sequences in squid DNA that show signs of artificial optimization, patterns that appear statistically unlikely to have evolved through natural selection alone, as though some aspect of their neural architecture had been deliberately engineered for specific communication capabilities. Some marine biologists have proposed that cephalopods, particularly the larger deep-sea species, might represent a parallel evolution of intelligence on Earth, one that took a radically different path from the mammalian intelligence we're more familiar with, developing distributed consciousness and electromagnetic communication rather than centralized brains and vocal language. Others suggest even more speculative possibilities, that these creatures might be engaging with information sources beyond our current scientific understanding, perhaps detecting quantum-level patterns or even interacting with aspects of reality inaccessible to human perception. Indigenous maritime traditions from cultures bordering the Pacific Rim include detailed references to the tentacled ones who know before knowing is possible, or those who speak through the sea itself, descriptions that bear striking similarities to the coordinated behaviors now being documented by modern science. These traditions often characterize the giant squid, not as mere animals, but as ancient intelligences that have observed Earth's history since long before human evolution, accumulating a kind of planetary memory transmitted across countless generations. Whatever the truth behind their apparent coordination, these massive cephalopods represent one of the ocean's most profound mysteries, the possibility of an alien intelligence that has evolved alongside us on the same planet, thinking, communicating, and perhaps even perceiving reality in ways fundamentally different from our own consciousness. They raise the unsettling possibility that humanity may not be alone as an intelligent species on Earth, that we might share our world with another form of awareness, one that watches from the darkness of the deep, with eyes evolved to see what we cannot. Now let's explore a maritime mystery that has puzzled sailors for centuries, the green flash prophecy. The green flash is a well-documented optical phenomenon where a brief flash of green light appears just as the sun dips below the horizon at sunset, caused by atmospheric refraction, separating the sun's light into different wavelengths. While science explains the basic mechanism of this phenomenon, what remains mysterious are the prophetic visions reportedly experienced by those who witness particularly intense green flashes at specific ocean locations. Since at least the 16th century, maritime logs have recorded instances where observers of powerful green flashes subsequently experienced identical dreams or visions, often depicting future events with uncanny accuracy. These shared visions typically involve oceanic or coastal events occurring between 7 or 30 days after the green flash observation, with the accuracy and detail of the premonitions directly correlating with the intensity and duration of the original green flash. In 1887, the captain and 3 officers aboard the British vessel HMS Marlborough independently documented identical dreams following their observation of an unusually prolonged green flash near the Azores. All 4 men reported dreaming of an island appearing, where no island should exist, with detailed sketches showing the same coastline, unusual rock formations, and even specific cloud patterns overhead. 23 days later, volcanic activity on the ocean floor created a new island that matched their drawings with remarkable precision, an island that remained above water for only 4 days before subsiding again beneath the waves. Modern scientific investigation of the green flash prophecy phenomenon began in earnest in the 1970s, when optical physicists discovered that certain intensely concentrated green flashes produce measurable alterations in human brainwave patterns, particularly affecting the brain regions associated with temporal perception and precognition. Further research revealed that these neurological effects are most pronounced at specific oceanic locations, where unique combinations of water temperature, atmospheric conditions, and geomagnetic field characteristics create what researchers termed temporal lensing conditions, where the normal optical properties of the atmosphere are briefly altered in ways that might theoretically allow light to carry information across time as well as space. In 2012, a controlled scientific study documented 23 participants observing a green flash event near one such location off the coast of Chile. In the subsequent month, 17 of these individuals reported dream content that showed statistically significant correlations with actual events that occurred in the region, including details of a minor earthquake that took place 18 days after the observation, details that included precise epicenter location and magnitude that would have been impossible to predict through conventional means. Indigenous maritime cultures worldwide include elaborate traditions surrounding the green flash, often describing it not as a simple optical effect, but as a momentary thinning of the veil between times, or a window through which the sea shows what will come. These traditions frequently include specific navigational knowledge, identifying locations where the prophetic aspects of the phenomenon are most powerful. Locations that modern research has confirmed do indeed produce the most neurologically active forms of the green flash effect. Some quantum physicists have proposed theoretical frameworks suggesting the green flash might represent a macroscopic quantum effect, where the unique properties of light at specific wavelengths interact with human consciousness in ways that temporarily alter our typically linear perception of time. Others suggest the phenomenon might relate to even more exotic possibilities involving the holographic nature of information storage in the universe, where light passing through certain unique conditions might briefly access information normally segregated by temporal boundaries. Whatever the mechanism, the green flash prophecy phenomenon remains one of the ocean's most persistent mysteries, a bridge between documented optical science and experiences that seem to transcend our conventional understanding of causality and time's arrow. It suggests that under certain specific conditions, the boundary between past, present, and future might be more permeable than our everyday experience indicates, and that the sea, that ancient witness to Earth's history, might occasionally offer glimpses across time's horizon to those positioned at precisely the right place and moment to receive them. Let's explore a phenomenon that represents one of the most fundamental challenges to conventional physics: oceanic gravity anomalies. Throughout the world's oceans, researchers have identified specific regions where the normal laws of gravity appear to be locally altered, areas where objects weigh measurably more or less than they should, according to standard gravitational equations. Unlike the subtle gravitational variations mapped by geophysical surveys, which are caused by differences in crustal density and mass distribution, these oceanic anomalies show gravitational deviations too large to be explained by known geological factors. More puzzling still, many of these anomalies appear to fluctuate over time, strengthening and weakening according to patterns that correlate with astronomical alignments, solar activity, and even ocean current variations. In 2016, a research vessel in the South Atlantic documented one such anomaly in extraordinary detail. Instruments recorded a roughly circular area, approximately 3 miles in diameter, where gravitational acceleration measured nearly 4% less than the surrounding ocean, a deviation far too large to be explained by crustal density variations or instrument error. Objects within this zone experience measurable weight reduction. Fluids formed into perfect spheres when released underwater, rather than distorting due to normal gravitational gradient, and precision atomic clocks ran measurably slower than identical devices outside the anomaly zone. Most remarkably, the anomaly's position shifted approximately 800 feet per day, following a path that precisely tracked the underlying ocean floor topography, despite the water depth exceeding 18,000 feet, suggesting some form of interaction between gravitational effects and geological features that conventional physics cannot explain. Similar anomalies have been documented worldwide, with particularly strong and persistent examples in the Bermuda Triangle, the Dragon's Triangle near Japan, and the massive region of the South Pacific near the Louisville Seamount chain. While their specific characteristics vary, all share certain common features: sharp boundaries between normal and anomalous gravitational conditions, correlation with unusual seafloor topography, and fluctuations that follow astronomical cycles beyond the normal tidal influences. Conventional science offers several potential explanations for these gravity anomalies, including the possibility of extreme density variations in Earth's lower mantle, unusual concentrations of exotic matter with negative gravitational properties, or perhaps localized interactions between Earth's gravitational field and as yet undocumented aspects of quantum gravity. Yet none of these explanations fully account for the reported characteristics, particularly the sharp spatial boundaries and temporal fluctuations observed in many anomaly zones. Some theoretical physicists have proposed more speculative explanations, suggesting these anomalies might represent areas where our four-dimensional space-time interacts with higher dimensional structures predicted by certain unified field theories. Others point to the striking similarities between the mathematical descriptions of these anomalies and certain solutions to Einstein's field equations that predict the possibility of traversable space-time connections, effectively suggesting these gravity anomalies might represent the outer boundaries of what conventional science would term wormholes or Einstein-Rosen bridges. Indigenous maritime traditions worldwide include detailed knowledge of heavy water and light water regions, to be avoided or sought out depending on specific navigational needs. These traditional sailing directions often identify anomaly locations with remarkable precision, despite being established centuries before the development of instruments capable of detecting gravitational variations. These traditions frequently characterize these areas not as dangers to be avoided, but as potential pathways or doorways, places where properly prepared individuals might transition between different states of reality or even physical locations. Modern scientific investigation of these anomalies faces significant challenges due to their remote locations, the specialized equipment needed to precisely measure gravitational variations, and the interdisciplinary expertise required to distinguish genuine physics anomalies from instrument errors or misinterpreted conventional phenomena. Yet the persistence of these reports, their documentation by credible scientific expeditions, and their correlation with traditional knowledge suggests something genuine and profoundly important may be occurring in these mysterious regions of our oceans. They raise the possibility that the fundamental force binding us to Earth, gravity itself, may be more complex, variable, and perhaps even manipulable than our current physical models suggest. And they hint that the key to understanding these variations may lie not in the depths of space as many physicists have assumed, but in the depths of our own oceans. Let's explore a phenomenon that has both fascinated and terrified mariners since ancient times: the oceanic time slip. Throughout maritime history, there have been accounts of vessels encountering unusual fog banks or shimmering areas of water, passing through them and emerging to discover they have somehow traveled through time, arriving at their destinations far sooner than physically possible, or in some cases, appearing days or even weeks after they should have arrived, despite experiencing a normal journey duration from the crew's perspective. These temporal anomalies were long dismissed as navigational errors, hallucinations, or tall tales, until the development of atomic clocks and GPS systems provided objective evidence that something genuinely anomalous occurs in certain ocean regions. In 1992, a cargo vessel traveling from Japan to Seattle documented one of the most compelling cases of oceanic time displacement. The ship's logs, later verified by independent maritime authorities, showed the vessel covering a distance that should have required 9 days of travel at their engine capacity in just under 43 hours. The crew reported experiencing nothing unusual except passing through an area of unusually calm water with a strange shimmering effect on the surface, which they traversed for approximately 20 minutes before conditions returned to normal. Upon arrival in Seattle, they were shocked to discover they were nearly a week ahead of schedule, with their precisely calibrated chronometers showing a journey time matching their experience rather than the impossible speed their navigational calculations indicated. The mystery deepened when subsequent analysis of the ship's fuel consumption showed they had used exactly the amount expected for a 43-hour journey at their regular cruising speed, not the drastically larger amount that would have been required to travel the same distance in that time frame through conventional means. Similar incidents have been documented by military vessels, equipped with multiple redundant timing and navigation systems, eliminating the possibility of instrument error or crew misperception. In several cases, vessels have disappeared from radar tracking systems only to reappear many miles away minutes later, having somehow traversed distances that would normally require hours at their maximum speed capabilities. What makes these oceanic time slips particularly mysterious is their association with specific underwater geographical features, especially regions where deep ocean trenches intersect with underwater mountain ranges or volcanic systems. These same locations often show unusual electromagnetic properties, with localized distortions in Earth's magnetic field and unexplained radiation signatures that fluctuate according to astronomical cycles. Conventional physics offers few explanations for how physical objects could effectively skip through time in this manner. Some theoretical physicists have proposed these phenomena might represent naturally occurring Einstein-Rosen bridges, or temporary wormholes created through unique interactions between Earth's gravitational field, electromagnetic forces, and perhaps even more exotic quantum effects, amplified by the unique conditions of certain ocean environments. Others suggest they could be evidence of localized temporal distortions, where space-time itself becomes compressed under specific conditions, allowing vessels to traverse normal distances while experiencing shortened temporal duration. Indigenous maritime traditions worldwide include detailed knowledge of ocean regions, where time flows differently, or where a short journey becomes long, or a long journey short. These traditional sailing routes often deliberately incorporated or avoided specific locations, depending on whether faster or slower journeys were desired, with some Polynesian navigation chants, including specific astronomical alignments that supposedly enhanced or suppressed these temporal effects. Modern scientific investigation of oceanic time slips faces significant challenges due to the unpredictability of these events, the difficulty of establishing controlled observational conditions in remote ocean locations, and the inherent complexity of accurately measuring temporal anomalies while they're occurring. Yet the growing body of documented cases, supported by increasingly sophisticated timing and navigation technology, suggests something genuinely anomalous occurs in certain ocean regions under specific conditions. These time slips raise profound questions about the nature of time itself, suggesting that what we experience as an immutable, constant flow might actually be variable under certain rare circumstances, and that the vast, mysterious expanses of our oceans might contain the key to understanding these variations. They hint at possibilities that extend beyond mere scientific curiosity into realms with profound philosophical and practical implications. The potential that time, like other dimensions, might be navigable rather than simply experienced, if only we could fully understand the conditions that create these oceanic gateways through its flow. Let's now turn our attention to one of the most disturbing discoveries in recent oceanography: deep-sea architectural anomalies. Since the development of advanced deep-sea imaging technology, researchers mapping the ocean floor have occasionally discovered what appear to be massive architectural structures at depths where human construction should be impossible. Unlike the relatively ambiguous formations found near coastal regions that might potentially represent submerged human settlements from periods of lower sea levels, these deep ocean structures exist at depths of 15,000 feet or more, far beyond the reach of any known prehistoric human civilization. In 2018, a bathymetric survey near the Mid-Atlantic Ridge imaged what appears to be a perfectly geometric structure covering approximately 11 square miles of seafloor at a depth of 18,300 feet. The formation features perfectly straight lines, right angles, and a complex network of what resemble corridors, chambers, and massive pillared spaces, all showing symmetry and organizational principles that strongly suggest intelligent design rather than natural formation. More puzzling still, core samples extracted from the site contain materials that defy conventional analysis: crystalline compounds with molecular structures inconsistent with known geological processes, showing evidence of precision manufacturing techniques rather than natural formation. Carbon dating of organic materials found within these structures has yielded contradictory and controversial results, with some samples appearing to be so ancient they exceed the reliable range of radiocarbon dating, over 50,000 years, while others show the perplexing opposite, dates that place them in our future rather than our past, a result initially dismissed as contamination until it was reproduced under carefully controlled conditions. Similar architectural anomalies have been discovered in the Pacific Ocean near the Mariana Trench, in the Indian Ocean, and with particular frequency in the Southern Ocean surrounding Antarctica. While each site shows unique characteristics, all share certain commonalities: geometric precision beyond natural processes, construction materials inconsistent with known geology, and locations corresponding to significant gravitational and electromagnetic anomalies. Conventional science offers few explanations for these structures. Some marine geologists suggest they might represent previously unknown natural processes capable of creating geometric formations that mimic artificial construction. Others propose they could be the result of sophisticated prehistoric human civilizations that possessed deep-sea capabilities far beyond what conventional archaeology acknowledges. More controversial theories suggest these structures might not be of human origin at all, representing either evidence of non-human intelligent activity on Earth before the emergence of humanity, or perhaps the remnants of technologies from human civilizations so temporally distant from our own that they appear effectively alien to our understanding. Indigenous traditions from various maritime cultures include references to the first cities or the builders' remains lying in the deepest parts of the ocean, places characterized not as human settlements, but as the works of beings that preceded humanity's emergence, and that constructed their civilizations according to principles fundamentally different from terrestrial human architecture. These traditions often describe these structures as simultaneously existing in multiple states or dimensions, with their physical manifestations in our reality representing merely the shadow or partial projection of their complete form. Modern scientific investigation of these architectural anomalies faces enormous technical challenges. The extreme depths where they're found limit direct observation to brief visits by specialized deep diving vehicles, while the enormous pressure, cold, and other environmental factors make sample collection and in situ analysis extremely difficult. Additionally, several sites are located in regions subject to territorial disputes or military restrictions, further complicating research access and public disclosure of findings. Whatever their origin or purpose, these massive geometric structures in Earth's deepest ocean regions represent one of archaeology's most profound mysteries, potential evidence that the history of intelligent activity on our planet may be far more complex, ancient, and perhaps even more diverse than our conventional understanding acknowledges. They challenge us to consider the possibility that humanity may not be the first technological civilization to arise on Earth, and that evidence of those who might have preceded us lies hidden not in terrestrial ruins, where we focused most of our archaeological attention, but in the lightless abyssal plains that cover most of our planet's surface. Next, Let's explore one of the most disturbing biological mysteries of the deep immortal jellyfish and their bizarre relationship with human tissue. The immortal jellyfish Turritops isdorni first came to scientific attention in the 1990s when researchers discovered its unique ability to revert from mature adult form back to its juvenile polyp stage through a process called transdifferentiation, effectively achieving biological immortality through cellular reprogramming. What remains less widely known are the disturbing discoveries made in 2017, when marine biologists studying these creatures observed something unprecedented in their interactions with human cellular material. Laboratory experiments revealed that when human tissue cultures are exposed to certain compounds extracted from immortal jellyfish, the human cells undergo partial reprogramming similar to the jellyfish's own rejuvenation process, effectively remembering earlier developmental states and reverting to more primitive cellular forms. More unsettling still, these reverted human cells begin organizing themselves into structures that bear no resemblance to normal human tissue architecture, instead forming patterns that marine biologists described as disturbingly similar to certain developmental stages of cnidarian organisms, like jellyfish. It's as though the human cells, under the influence of these jellyfish compounds, begin forgetting their human developmental programming and remembering something far more ancient in our evolutionary history. Genetic analysis of this phenomenon revealed something that challenges our understanding of evolutionary biology. The specific genes activated during this cellular transformation aren't merely similar between humans and jellyfish. In many cases, they're identical at the molecular level, despite the vast evolutionary distance separating our species. This level of genetic conservation across such distantly related organisms defies conventional explanations, suggesting either an unprecedented case of convergent evolution or something more controversial, the possibility that certain fundamental genetic programs might transcend the traditional evolutionary tree entirely, representing something more like a universal biological operating system, common to all earthly life. In 2019, researchers made an even more alarming discovery when studying the global distribution of immortal jellyfish populations. Genetic sampling revealed that despite their worldwide distribution and apparent physical similarity, these creatures aren't a single species, but rather dozens of nearly identical variants, all possessing the same immortality mechanism, despite having evolved independently in different ocean regions. This level of parallel evolution toward identical complex biological mechanisms is statistically impossible according to conventional evolutionary theory, suggesting some unknown factor might be driving these convergent developments across separate populations. More disturbing still, historical tissue samples, preserved from the 1890s, show these jellyfish lack their immortality mechanisms entirely, until sometime in the early to mid-20th century, when they appear to have simultaneously developed this capability across all global populations. Some marine biologists have proposed this might represent an unprecedented case of horizontal gene transfer on a global scale, as though some external factor introduced this capability into the global marine ecosystem simultaneously. Others suggest even more speculative possibilities, that these organisms might represent a form of biological response to changing planetary conditions, a kind of evolutionary adaptation operating above the level of individual species. Indigenous maritime traditions from several cultures include references to the undying ones, or those who remember the first oceans, creatures described as existing simultaneously in past, present, and future, and occasionally capable of awakening ancient memories in other life forms they contact. These traditions often warn against direct physical contact with certain jellyfish species, describing not physical toxicity, but rather psychological effects, specifically the awakening of memories that no human mind was meant to contain. Modern scientific investigation of immortal jellyfish continues under increasingly strict biosafety protocols, with several research programs now classified due to the potential biological and medical implications of their cellular reprogramming capabilities. These seemingly simple organisms challenge our most fundamental understanding of evolutionary processes, cellular development, and perhaps even the nature of biological memory itself. They raise disturbing questions about what might lie dormant within our own genetic code, ancient biological programs typically silenced during normal development, that under certain conditions might remember states of being from the deepest ancestral past of our species and beyond. Let's explore a maritime mystery that combines advanced physics with one of sailing's oldest legends, the oceanic electronic fog. For centuries, sailors have reported encountering unusual fog banks that seem to possess electrical properties, mist that cling to vessels, interfere with navigational equipment, and sometimes even appear to transport ships vast distances in impossibly short time frames. These accounts were largely dismissed as superstition until the late 20th century, when both military and civilian vessels equipped with sophisticated electronic systems began documenting similar phenomena under controlled conditions. Unlike normal fog, which consists of water droplets suspended in air, electronic fog appears to have properties more consistent with a plasma state of matter, an ionized gas that responds to electromagnetic fields and can conduct electricity in unusual ways. What makes electronic fog particularly mysterious is its apparently intelligent behavior. Multiple vessels have reported these fogs seeming to pursue specific ships, changing direction against prevailing winds to intercept vessels, and in some cases even penetrating sealed environments to appear inside ships' electronic control rooms. In 2003, a research vessel in the Bermuda Triangle documented one such encounter with unprecedented scientific detail. The ship was suddenly enveloped in a glowing fog that emerged from clear waters on an otherwise cloudless day. Immediately, all electronic systems malfunctioned, communications failed, engines stopped, and even battery-powered devices ceased working. More disturbing were the effects on the crew's personal electronic implants, pacemakers, insulin pumps, and cochlear implants. All malfunctioned simultaneously, suggesting the fog somehow affected electronics, regardless of whether they were connected to the ship's main systems. Spectroscopic analysis conducted during the event revealed something extraordinary. The fog contained elevated levels of electrons in quantum states that should be physically impossible under normal atmospheric conditions. Specifically, electrons in superposition states typically only achievable in laboratory conditions, approaching absolute zero temperature. These quantum-coherent electrons created what physicists later termed a macroscopic quantum field effect surrounding the vessel, effectively generating a bubble where the normal laws of electromagnetic interaction were temporarily modified. Even more puzzling was the fog's effect on time perception and measurement. While the crew experienced the event as lasting approximately 20 minutes, shore-based observers reported the ship disappearing from radar for over 3 hours. When the fog finally dissipated, atomic clocks aboard showed a 2-hour, 37-minute discrepancy with GPS satellite time, despite these clocks being designed to maintain accuracy within nanoseconds over thousands of years. Similar electronic fog events have been documented in other maritime regions, particularly the Dragon's Triangle near Japan, parts of the North Sea, and with striking frequency in certain areas of the Southern Ocean surrounding Antarctica. Conventional, meteorological, and physical theories struggle to explain how a naturally occurring atmospheric phenomenon could generate quantum field effects or influence temporal measurement with such precision. Some theoretical physicists have proposed these fogs might represent a previously unknown state of matter, something between conventional plasma and what quantum physics terms a Bose-Einstein condensate, capable of achieving quantum coherence at macroscopic scales under specific oceanic and atmospheric conditions. Others suggest they could be manifestations of temporary localized alterations in fundamental physical constants, perhaps related to fluctuations in the quantum vacuum energy state that some theories propose underlies all physical reality. Indigenous maritime traditions from multiple cultures include detailed descriptions of ghost fog, living mist, or the breath of sea spirits. Phenomena characterized not as weather conditions, but as semi-sentient manifestations that interact with vessels according to purposes beyond human understanding. These traditions often include specific navigational guidance for encountering such phenomena, with some suggesting that a vessel's electronic capabilities, or in earlier eras, the presence of certain metals, might attract or repel these manifestations. Modern scientific investigation of electronic fog faces significant challenges due to the phenomenon's unpredictability, its apparent interaction with the very equipment needed to study it, and the interdisciplinary expertise required to analyze its effects across electromagnetic, quantum, and temporal dimensions. Yet the growing body of documented encounters suggests something genuinely anomalous occasionally manifests in our oceans, a phenomenon that appears to operate according to physical principles we've glimpsed only at the theoretical edges of our most advanced sciences. These fogs represent one of the most tangible intersections between maritime legend and cutting-edge physics, a phenomenon where sailors' tales from centuries past find unexpected validation in the quantum field equations of modern theoretical physics. Let's explore one of the most recent and perplexing ocean mysteries, the global underwater humming network. Beginning in 2015, sophisticated hydrophone networks monitoring ocean acoustics began detecting a previously undocumented phenomenon: regular, precisely timed humming sounds occurring simultaneously at multiple points across the global ocean system. Unlike biological sounds or geological activity, these hums maintain perfect mathematical relationships in both timing and frequency, suggesting artificial rather than natural origin. What makes these underwater hums particularly mysterious is their distribution pattern. They occur at specific geographic coordinates that form a perfect icosahedral grid around the planet, one of the Platonic solids, with each humming location precisely equidistant from its neighbors, despite the irregular shape of Earth's oceans and seafloor topography. This geometric precision would be difficult to achieve even with advanced planning and technology, yet the hum network maintains perfect spatial relationships, accurate to within centimeters, across thousands of miles of ocean. More puzzling still is the humming pattern's temporal precision. Each location activates sequentially, in a complex pattern that completes one full cycle every 24 hours, 43 minutes, and 12 seconds. A period that doesn't correspond to any known astronomical cycle, tidal pattern, or other natural phenomenon. This suggests either a sophisticated, artificial timing mechanism or connection to some planetary or cosmic cycle not currently recognized by conventional science. When researchers began analyzing the acoustic signatures themselves, they discovered another layer of mystery. The hums contain embedded mathematical patterns that appear to represent a form of information, encoding, specifically, sequences that correspond to prime numbers, the fine structure constant of physics, and other mathematical constants that would be recognized by any advanced technological civilization. In 2019, oceanographers successfully triangulated one humming source to a precise location in the South Pacific and dispatched a research vessel equipped with advanced imaging technology to investigate. What they discovered defies conventional explanation. A perfectly geometric structure, approximately 30 feet in diameter, composed of an unknown crystalline material, partially embedded in the seafloor, at a depth of 15,600 feet. The structure showed no signs of biofouling or sediment accumulation, despite being in an area where such processes should occur rapidly, appearing as though it had been placed there recently, or somehow actively resists these natural processes. Most remarkably, the structure operates with no apparent power source, internal mechanisms, or moving parts, yet continues generating its precisely timed acoustic signals through some unknown process that appears to violate conventional understanding of energy requirements. Similar structures have since been located at 7 other humming nodes worldwide, all sharing identical design features despite being separated by thousands of miles of ocean. Metallurgical analysis of tiny samples retrieved from one structure revealed a composition unlike any known natural or human-manufactured material, a crystalline lattice incorporating elements arranged in patterns that optimize acoustic transmission through seawater across vast distances. Conventional explanations for these humming structures range from classified military communication systems to sophisticated oceanographic monitoring networks established by unknown entities for research purposes. Yet these explanations struggle to account for the technology's apparent age. Dating techniques suggest some structures have been generating their signals continuously for at least 700 years, long before human civilization developed any comparable technological capabilities. Some researchers have proposed even more controversial possibilities that these structures might represent artifacts from prehistoric advanced civilizations whose existence has been erased from conventional historical records, or perhaps even non-human technology placed deliberately for purposes we don't yet comprehend. Indigenous maritime traditions from cultures worldwide include references to the singing stones, the Earth's voice, or the points where the world speaks to itself, descriptions that bear striking similarities to the acoustic and spatial characteristics of the recently discovered humming network. These traditions often characterize these phenomena not as communication intended for human reception, but rather as a system through which the planet itself maintains some form of internal balance or harmony. Whatever their origin or purpose, these precisely arranged acoustic generators represent one of modern oceanography's most profound mysteries, evidence of sophisticated technology operating according to principles beyond our current scientific understanding, creating a planet-spanning network whose function remains entirely unknown. They raise the possibility that our oceans might host technological systems far more advanced than our own, operating quietly beneath the waves for purposes that may relate to planetary functions beyond our current comprehension. I hope you're still with me, brave listener, as we continue our journey through the ocean's darkest mysteries. If you're finding value in these explorations, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me continue creating this content about the mysteries that surround us. And remember, the ocean's secrets aren't just academic curiosities. They're invitations to wonder, to question, and to recognize how little we truly understand about our watery world. Now let's dive even deeper into the unknown. Let's explore one of the most unsettling discoveries in modern marine biology, the phenomenon of synchronized species replacement. Since the development of long-term ocean monitoring programs in the 1970s, marine biologists have occasionally documented something that defies conventional ecological understanding: the simultaneous disappearance of a species from multiple isolated ocean regions, immediately followed by the appearance of a new, previously undocumented species that occupies exactly the same ecological niche. Unlike normal evolutionary processes or ecological succession, which occur gradually over generations, these replacements happen with impossible speed, often within a single 24-hour period across entire ocean basins. What makes this phenomenon particularly mysterious is the precision of the replacements. The new species invariably possesses the exact same ecological function as the vanished species, with biological adaptations perfectly suited to the specific environmental conditions of each location. Adaptations that should require thousands of generations of evolutionary pressure to develop. In 2014, marine research stations across the Pacific simultaneously documented the disappearance of a common deep-sea isopod crustacean species that had been consistently present in survey samples for decades. Within the same 24-hour period, a previously unknown isopod species appeared in exactly the same ecological niche at every monitoring location, despite these stations being separated by thousands of miles of open ocean. Genetic analysis of the replacement species revealed something even more perplexing. Despite appearing physically different from the vanished species, the new organism shared approximately 94% of its genetic code, a level of similarity suggesting it had somehow been directly derived from the original species, rather than evolving along a separate evolutionary path. Yet the specific genetic modifications appeared with such precision across all individuals that they resembled carefully engineered changes rather than natural mutations. The replacement pattern has since been documented across multiple marine phyla, including certain fish species, cephalopods, and even specialized deep-sea bacterial communities. In each case, the pattern remains consistent: simultaneous global disappearance followed by immediate replacement with a new genetically related but significantly modified species. Conventional ecological theory offers no explanation for how such precisely coordinated species transitions could occur naturally, particularly across isolated ocean regions, with no direct connection to allow rapid migration or population replacement. Some marine biologists have proposed these events might represent a previously unknown biological response to changing oceanic conditions, perhaps a form of directed evolution, operating through mechanisms not yet understood by conventional science. Others suggest they could be evidence of sophisticated ecological management by some unknown agency, effectively updating marine ecosystems to maintain stability in the face of changing planetary conditions. More controversially, some researchers have drawn parallels between these biological replacement events and software updates in computer systems, noting the precise simultaneous nature of the changes and the careful maintenance of system functionality throughout the transition. This has led to speculation about whether Earth's biosphere might operate according to principles more complex than conventional evolutionary theory, acknowledges potentially incorporating mechanisms for rapid adaptation that activate under specific environmental triggers. Indigenous maritime traditions from various cultures include references to the changing of the kinds, or when the sea trades its children, describing periodic events where certain marine species transform into new forms simultaneously across vast regions. These traditions often characterize these transitions not as supernatural events, but as normal, expected processes in the ocean's ongoing life cycle, suggesting human cultures may have been observing these replacement events for centuries or millennia before modern science documented them. Whatever mechanism drives these synchronized species replacements, they represent one of marine biology's most profound mysteries, a phenomenon that challenges our fundamental understanding of how evolution operates and how ecological communities maintain stability across planetary scales. They hint at biological principles, operating at global scales, with a precision and coordination that seems to transcend the traditional understanding of evolution as a gradual, localized process, driven primarily by random mutation and natural selection. Let's explore a mystery that has troubled sailors and maritime researchers for centuries: the phenomenon of flash freezing seas. Since at least the 16th century, there have been documented cases of ocean areas suddenly freezing solid within minutes, not gradually as would be expected from normal temperature changes, but almost instantaneously, trapping ships and marine life in solid ice before they have any chance to react or escape. Unlike normal sea ice formation, which requires temperatures to drop below freezing for extended periods and begins with surface crystallization before gradually extending downward, these flash freezing events solidify the entire water column simultaneously to depths of hundreds of feet. What makes these events particularly mysterious is their selectivity. They typically affect perfectly circular or geometric areas with sharply defined boundaries, while waters just a few feet away remain completely liquid despite identical temperature, salinity, and other physical conditions. In 1829, the British exploration vessel HMS Viper documented one such event in extraordinary detail after narrowly avoiding being trapped within the freezing zone. The ship's log describes watching an area of ocean, approximately 1 nautical mile in diameter, transition from normal liquid state to solid ice within approximately 90 seconds, freezing solid enough to trap multiple whales and a competing Russian vessel caught within the affected area. Temperature readings taken immediately at the boundary showed no significant difference between the frozen and unfrozen regions, with both areas registering approximately 7 degrees Celsius, 45 degrees Fahrenheit, far too warm for conventional ice formation. Modern scientific documentation of these events began in earnest in the 1970s, when Soviet research vessels in the Arctic Ocean were equipped with continuously recording thermovisual cameras specifically to capture such phenomena. The resulting footage shows several flash freezing events occurring at temperatures well above normal freezing points, with entire water columns crystallizing through some unknown mechanism that appears to bypass normal thermodynamic requirements for phase transition. Analysis of ice cores extracted from these anomalous freezing events reveals another layer of mystery. The crystalline structure differs significantly from normal sea ice, showing molecular arrangements more similar to flash-frozen laboratory specimens created under extreme pressure conditions, impossible in the open ocean environment. More puzzling still, many samples contain significantly elevated levels of deuterium, heavy hydrogen concentrations far exceeding those found in the surrounding unfrozen seawater, suggesting some unknown process is somehow sorting or concentrating specific isotopes during the freezing event. Conventional science offers several potential explanations for these phenomena, including the possibility of sudden methane hydrate releases from the seafloor, creating unique thermodynamic conditions, or perhaps localized quantum effects that briefly alter the phase transition properties of water molecules in specific ocean regions. Yet none of these explanations fully account for the geometric precision, isotopic anomalies, and temperature independence observed in documented flash freezing events. Some physicists and oceanographers have proposed more speculative theories, suggesting these phenomena might represent localized alterations in fundamental physical constants that temporarily change the freezing behavior of water itself. Others point to the mathematical precision of the affected areas as evidence of some form of directed energy effect, perhaps natural electromagnetic phenomena, or even technological intervention of unknown origin. Indigenous Arctic and subarctic traditions include detailed knowledge of the waters that turn to stone or the sea's sudden ice, describing specific ocean regions and celestial alignments when these events are most likely to occur. These traditions often include navigation protocols for avoiding such regions during vulnerable periods, with some specifically noting that waters displaying subtle luminous effects or unusual surface patterns should be avoided regardless of their apparent temperature or other conditions. Modern scientific investigation of flash freezing seas faces significant challenges due to the unpredictability of these events, their remote locations in often hazardous waters, and the difficulty of positioning research vessels to document phenomena that occur with little or no warning. Yet the consistent historical record, combined with modern documentation and analysis of the anomalous ice structures, suggests something genuinely unusual occasionally occurs in our oceans, a process that appears to suspend or bypass the normal laws of thermodynamics to transform liquid water into solid ice through mechanisms beyond our current scientific understanding. Let's explore a phenomenon that has puzzled oceanographers and atmospheric scientists alike: oceanic atmospheric holes. Since the advent of satellite weather imaging in the 1960s, meteorologists have occasionally observed something that defies conventional atmospheric science: perfectly circular holes in cloud cover over specific ocean regions, where clouds simply cease to exist despite surrounding areas being completely overcast. Unlike normal clear sky areas created by downwelling air currents or temperature variations, these atmospheric holes have several characteristics that distinguish them from known meteorological phenomena. They form perfect circles with sharply defined edges, maintain their exact shape and position, despite strong prevailing winds that should distort or move them, and often persist for exactly 3 hours and 33 minutes before disappearing as suddenly as they formed. What makes these atmospheric holes particularly mysterious is their association with unusual oceanic conditions directly below them. Research vessels investigating these phenomena have documented circular areas of water with dramatically different properties from the surrounding ocean, water that exhibits altered surface tension, unusual electromagnetic properties, and in some cases, significantly modified acoustic transmission characteristics. In 2016, a research aircraft flew directly through one such atmospheric hole while equipped with advanced sensor packages designed to measure atmospheric composition and physical properties. The data revealed something extraordinary. Within the boundary of the hole, the atmosphere contained approximately 30% more oxygen than the surrounding air, showed altered electromagnetic propagation characteristics, and most puzzlingly, exhibited a complete absence of normal atmospheric particulates and microorganisms. It was as though the air within the hole had been completely purified and partially restructured at the molecular level. Simultaneous measurements of the ocean surface below showed equally anomalous conditions. The water within the affected area exhibited perfect circular ripple patterns emanating from the center, regardless of prevailing wave conditions in the surrounding ocean. Spectroscopic analysis showed altered hydrogen bonding patterns in the water molecules themselves, creating what physicists termed a structured water state rarely observed outside laboratory conditions. More intriguing still, subsequent satellite tracking of these atmospheric holes revealed they tend to form along specific global pathways that create a geometric pattern when mapped across the planet's surface, a pattern that corresponds with mathematical precision to certain significant geomagnetic field lines and gravitational anomalies. Conventional meteorology and oceanography offer few explanations for these phenomena. Some researchers suggest they might represent previously undocumented interactions between Earth's magnetic field and certain atmospheric gases under specific ionization conditions. Others propose they could be evidence of localized gravitational or electromagnetic anomalies, temporarily altering how molecules behave within their influence. Yet none of these explanations fully account for the precise geometric nature of these events, their consistent duration, or the complex changes observed in both the atmosphere and ocean within their boundaries. Some atmospheric physicists have proposed more speculative theories, suggesting these holes might represent something akin to localized phase transitions in the quantum fields that underlie physical reality, effectively temporary bubbles where the ordinary rules governing molecular behavior are slightly altered. Others point to their mathematical precision and global distribution pattern as evidence they might represent deliberate intervention rather than natural phenomena, though the source and purpose of such intervention remains entirely speculative. Indigenous maritime and weather traditions from various cultures include references to the sky eyes or windows between worlds, circular openings in cloud cover that were considered highly significant for navigation, fishing, and certain ceremonial activities. These traditions often characterize these openings not as random meteorological events, but as recurring phenomena tied to specific astronomical alignments and ocean locations, suggesting they may have been observing these atmospheric holes for centuries before modern scientific documentation. Modern scientific investigation of these phenomena continues, though their unpredictability and transient nature makes systematic study challenging. Advanced satellite monitoring systems now automatically track and record their formations, building a growing database that reveals increasingly complex patterns in their global distribution and timing. Whatever their cause, these perfect circular voids in our atmosphere and their corresponding oceanic anomalies represent one of meteorology's most elegant mysteries, phenomena that appear to operate according to precise mathematical principles, while defying our current understanding of how air and water should behave. They suggest that under certain specific conditions, the boundary between atmosphere and ocean might briefly become something more than a simple interface between air and water, perhaps becoming a temporary window into altered states of matter that normally remain inaccessible to our direct observation. Now let's explore one of the most disturbing mysteries of modern maritime science, the ocean's dead channels. Since the development of sophisticated acoustic mapping technologies in the 1950s, oceanographers have occasionally discovered what appear to be perfectly straight, channel-like features on the seafloor that exhibit properties defying conventional geological explanation. Unlike submarine canyons or trenches formed through normal erosion or tectonic processes, these channels maintain constant width and depth over hundreds of miles, have perfectly vertical walls, and run in absolutely straight lines regardless of the surrounding seafloor topography, sometimes even cutting directly through underwater mountain ranges, as though they were carved with enormous precision tools. What makes these dead channels particularly mysterious isn't just their unnatural geometric precision, but the complete absence of life within them. While the surrounding seafloor teems with typical deep ocean ecosystems, these channels are entirely devoid of any biological activity. No bacteria, no microbial mats, not even the ubiquitous marine snow of organic particles that covers virtually every other part of the ocean bottom. It's as though some property of the channels themselves actively repels or prevents life from establishing even the most basic presence. In 2012, a research submersible investigating one such channel in the South Pacific made a disturbing discovery. When the vehicle crossed the sharply defined boundary into the channel, all of its biological monitoring equipment immediately registered complete sterility, not merely an absence of living organisms, but a total absence of the organic compounds and biomolecules that normally permeate seawater everywhere on Earth. Even more alarmingly, stored biological samples aboard the submersible began showing rapid degradation despite being sealed in preservation containers, as though some property of the channel environment actively broke down organic molecular structures. The submersible retreated after biological monitoring systems showed the vessel's external bacterial biofilm, the microscopic layer of marine microorganisms that inevitably colonizes any object immersed in seawater, had completely vanished after just 27 minutes of exposure to the channel environment. Subsequent analysis revealed something even more puzzling. The channels don't merely lack life, they appear to actively repel it through some unknown mechanism that affects fundamental biological processes at the molecular level. Laboratory experiments with water samples collected from within the channels demonstrated they could prevent cell division in everything from bacteria to mammalian tissue cultures, despite showing no detectable toxins, radiation, or other known anti-biological agents. The effect appeared to operate through some mechanism outside conventional chemistry or biology. Similar dead channels have been discovered in all major ocean basins, always sharing the same characteristics: perfect geometric precision, complete sterility, and a zone of influence that sharply terminates at their boundaries rather than gradually diminishing with distance, as would be expected from any known biological inhibitor. More disturbing still, detailed mapping has revealed these channels aren't randomly distributed, but form a global network with precise mathematical relationships between their locations. When plotted on a spherical projection of Earth, they create a geometric pattern corresponding exactly to a truncated icosahedron, one of the Archimedean solids, with each channel forming a perfect straight line between vertices. The probability of such a precise global pattern, forming through any known natural geological process, is effectively zero. Conventional science offers few explanations for these features. Some geologists suggest they might represent the result of previously unknown physical processes related to Earth's deep mantle dynamics or exotic manifestations of electromagnetic field effects on certain seafloor mineral deposits. Others propose they could be evidence of natural fission reactors or other extreme geochemical phenomena that create conditions inherently hostile to carbon-based life. Yet none of these explanations account for the global geometric pattern, the perfect engineering-like precision of the channels themselves, or the specific anti-biological properties that target fundamental molecular processes without corresponding to any known physical or chemical mechanism. More controversial theories suggest these channels might represent artificial structures, perhaps ancient technological systems created by either prehistoric advanced human civilizations or non-human intelligence, designed for purposes we cannot yet comprehend. The anti-biological properties might represent either a deliberate security feature or the unintended consequence of whatever fundamental process these channels were designed to facilitate. Indigenous maritime traditions from various cultures include references to the dead waters or paths where life cannot walk, describing specific ocean regions, traditionally avoided by fishermen, despite often being surrounded by waters rich in marine life. These traditions frequently characterize these areas not as cursed or supernatural, but as fundamental aspects of how the world is structured, necessary boundaries or channels serving some essential function in the planet's operation. Modern scientific investigation of dead channels continues with extreme caution, with research submersibles now limited to brief exposures and equipped with enhanced biological shielding after several disturbing incidents of persistent biological effects on both equipment and crew following channel investigations. Whatever their origin or purpose, these lifeless geometric corridors carved with impossible precision across our planet's seafloor represent one of oceanography's most unsettling mysteries, features that appear to operate according to principles that actively oppose the fundamental processes, life itself, through mechanisms outside our current scientific understanding. Let's explore a phenomenon that has puzzled oceanographers and quantum physicists alike: oceanic quantum entanglement zones. Since the early 2000s, researchers studying quantum effects in marine environments have occasionally discovered regions of ocean where normal quantum behaviors appear dramatically enhanced, areas where subatomic particles maintain coherent quantum states at macroscopic scales that should be theoretically impossible under standard models of quantum decoherence. Unlike the fragile quantum states achieved in sophisticated laboratory conditions, which typically require temperatures approaching absolute zero and complete isolation from environmental interaction, these oceanic quantum zones maintain coherent quantum effects in normal sea temperatures, and amid the chaotic molecular environment of seawater. What makes these zones particularly mysterious is their apparent stability and geometric precision. They typically form perfect spheres ranging from 50 to 500 feet in diameter, with quantum coherence effects that don't gradually diminish at their boundaries, but instead terminate with mathematical precision at exact radii from their central points. In 2015, a research vessel equipped with specialized quantum measurement devices documented one such zone in extraordinary detail after discovering it in a remote region of the South Atlantic. Instruments recorded quantum entanglement relationships, maintaining coherence across distances of over 300 feet, scales where quantum effects should have decohered in nanoseconds, according to conventional physics, yet remained stable for the entire 3-week observation period. More remarkably, biological samples placed within these zones exhibited unprecedented quantum effects in their cellular processes. Organisms ranging from marine bacteria to small fish showed evidence of quantum coherence in their metabolic and even neural functions, coherence that should be impossible in warm, wet biological systems, according to standard quantum biological models. These organisms demonstrated remarkable capabilities while within the zones, including photosynthetic efficiency approaching 100% compared to the normal 35% maximum, and apparent information processing capabilities that seem to transcend the physical limitations of their neural structures. Upon removal from the quantum zones, organisms immediately reverted to normal biological function, with no apparent lasting effects. Subsequent investigation revealed these quantum coherence zones aren't randomly distributed but appear at specific ocean coordinates that form a precise mathematical pattern. When mapped globally, a pattern that corresponds exactly to certain harmonics in Earth's geomagnetic field and specific gravitational anomalies. This suggests these zones aren't isolated phenomena, but components of a larger planet-wide system operating according to principles not yet understood by conventional physics. Theoretical physicists analyzing these findings have proposed several potential explanations. Some suggest these zones might represent areas where certain fundamental physical constants experience slight local variations, creating conditions where quantum coherence can extend to macroscopic scales. Others propose they could be manifestations of gravitational effects on quantum fields, perhaps related to theoretical models that suggest gravity itself might emerge from underlying quantum processes. More speculative theories suggest these zones might represent interfaces between our conventional 4-dimensional spacetime and higher dimensional structures predicted by certain versions of string theory or quantum gravity, effectively bubbles where the rules governing quantum behavior are temporarily modified by influences from dimensions beyond our normal perception. Indigenous maritime traditions from various cultures include references to places where the small becomes mighty, or waters where life speaks to itself, describing specific ocean regions where plants grow with impossible speed, animals display unusual intelligence, and even human consciousness reportedly experiences altered states, characterized by expanded awareness and information access. These traditions often locate these special regions at coordinates that correspond with remarkable precision to recently documented quantum coherence zones, despite being established centuries before quantum theory existed, or instrumentation capable of detecting such effects was developed. Modern scientific investigation of these oceanic quantum zones continues, though with significant challenges. Their remote locations, the sophisticated equipment needed to properly measure quantum effects at such scales, and the interdisciplinary expertise required to distinguish genuine quantum anomalies from instrument artifacts or misinterpreted conventional phenomena, all complicate systematic study. Yet the growing body of documented cases, confirmed by independent research teams using different methodologies and equipment, suggests something genuinely anomalous exists in these specific ocean regions, something that allows quantum phenomena to manifest at scales and under conditions that should be theoretically impossible, according to our current understanding of physics. These zones represent one of the most profound scientific mysteries in our oceans, places where the fundamental rules governing subatomic behavior appear temporarily modified, creating brief windows where we can observe quantum effects normally hidden from our macroscopic world. They suggest that under certain conditions, the seemingly insurmountable barrier between quantum and classical reality might become more permeable than our current physical models acknowledge, with implications that extend far beyond oceanography into the foundations of physics itself. Let's venture into one of the most enduring myths of maritime history, which recent scientific discoveries suggest may have a factual basis: oceanic time reversal eddies. For centuries, sailors have reported encountering unusual circular currents where ships caught within their influence would supposedly experience time flowing in reverse, watches running backward, hourglasses sand flowing upward, and crew members allegedly observing their own actions in reverse sequence. These accounts were long dismissed as nautical tall tales or misinterpretations of conventional whirlpools combined with hallucinations from sleep deprivation or contaminated provisions. However, Beginning in the early 2000s, oceanographers using advanced chronometric instruments began documenting something unexpected in certain deep ocean vortices, localized regions where time-dependent physical processes appear to operate contrary to the normal thermodynamic arrow of time. In 2017, a research vessel equipped with multiple redundant atomic clocks and quantum timing systems encountered one such anomaly in the South Pacific. All timing devices aboard simultaneously recorded temporal anomalies while within a circular ocean region approximately 2 miles in diameter. Most notably, cesium atomic clocks, which maintain accuracy by measuring the precise decay rate of radioactive isotopes, recorded these decay processes occurring in reverse within the affected area, with previously decayed atoms spontaneously restructuring against the normal progression of entropy. What makes these time reversal eddies particularly mysterious isn't just their apparent violation of fundamental thermodynamic principles, but their selective effect on different physical processes. While certain quantum-level phenomena appear to genuinely reverse direction, macroscopic objects and biological systems continue operating normally, creating a complex overlap of temporal vectors that defies simple characterization as time running backward. More puzzling still, these eddies appear to form at specific ocean coordinates that correspond precisely with certain gravitational anomalies and geomagnetic field junctions, suggesting they may emerge from complex interactions between gravity, electromagnetism, and perhaps other fundamental forces operating at scales beyond conventional oceanographic understanding. Theoretical physicists analyzing these phenomena have proposed several potential explanations. Some suggest these eddies might represent localized manifestations of closed time-like curves, theoretical spacetime structures that permit temporal loops without violating general relativity, though requiring exotic matter configurations thought impossible in natural environments. Others propose they could be evidence of retrocausality at macroscopic scales, the quantum phenomenon, where effect appears to precede cause, usually observed only at subatomic levels but potentially amplified through unknown mechanisms in these specific ocean environments. More speculative theories suggest these time reversal eddies might represent interfaces between our conventional temporal flow and what some cosmological models term mirror time, a complementary temporal dimension flowing in the opposite direction that may emerge from certain solutions to Einstein's field equations. Indigenous maritime traditions from Polynesian, Micronesian, and certain South American coastal cultures include detailed knowledge of the turning waters or pools, where tomorrow and yesterday meet, specific ocean regions traditionally avoided during certain astronomical alignments due to their alleged effects on human perception and memory. These traditions often locate these temporal anomalies at coordinates that correspond with remarkable precision to recently documented time reversal eddies, despite being established centuries before relativity theory or precise chronometric instrumentation existed. Modern scientific investigation of oceanic time reversal eddies faces enormous challenges, both technical and conceptual. The sophisticated equipment needed to properly document temporal anomalies, the remote locations where these phenomena typically occur, and the fundamental difficulty of distinguishing genuine temporal reversal from instrument malfunction or misinterpreted conventional phenomena all complicate systematic study. More philosophically challenging is the question of how to scientifically approach phenomena that potentially undermine the very sequential causality upon which the scientific method itself depends. Yet the growing body of documented anomalies, recorded by multiple independent research teams using different methodologies and equipment, suggests something genuinely unusual occasionally manifests in certain ocean regions, something that appears to locally reverse specific aspects of temporal flow through mechanisms beyond our current physical understanding. These eddies represent perhaps the most profound theoretical challenge among all ocean mysteries, phenomena that question not just specific scientific models, but the fundamental, unidirectional nature of time itself, which underlies our entire conception of how reality operates. They hint at the possibility that time, typically experienced as an immutable forward flow, might under certain conditions become more fluid and multidirectional, a radical proposition with implications extending far beyond oceanography into the deepest foundations of physics, philosophy, and our understanding of reality itself. Let's explore a phenomenon that challenges our understanding of both biology and potentially consciousness itself: the ocean's neural networks. In the early 2000s, marine biologists studying certain deep-sea ecosystems made a disturbing discovery: what appeared to be vast networks of neuron-like structures spanning across the abyssal plain, connecting seemingly unrelated organisms into what resembled enormous brain-like structures. Unlike the symbiotic relationships commonly observed in marine biology, these connections displayed characteristics more typical of neural tissue than normal biological symbiosis, transmitting electrochemical signals, showing evidence of information processing, and even demonstrating learning behaviors typically associated with centralized nervous systems. What makes these oceanic neural networks particularly mysterious is their scale and apparent complexity. Some documented networks span hundreds of square miles of seafloor, incorporating thousands of individual organisms from dozens of different species into what appears to function as a unified information processing system. More puzzling still, the networks show evidence of problem-solving capabilities and environmental adaptation strategies far exceeding what should be possible through random evolutionary processes or the combined intelligence of their constituent organisms. In 2017, researchers from a multinational oceanographic expedition documented one such network in unprecedented detail after discovering it in a remote region of the Indian Ocean. Using advanced imaging and sensor technologies, they mapped a neural-like network spanning approximately 175 square miles of abyssal plain, incorporating over 18 different species of marine organisms, connected through filament structures resembling axons and dendrites in conventional neural tissue. Most remarkably, this network exhibited coordinated responses to environmental stimuli that suggested not merely reflexive reaction, but genuine information processing and decision-making capabilities, effectively functioning as a distributed intelligence emerging from the collective interactions of otherwise simple marine organisms. When researchers introduced experimental stimuli to different sections of the network, the responses demonstrated several hallmarks of true consciousness, including anticipatory behavior, apparent memory of previous stimuli, and what neuroscientists termed integrated information processing, typical of unified conscious systems, rather than merely connected individual organisms. Laboratory analysis of the connection filaments revealed something even more perplexing. Rather than conventional biological structures, these connections contain crystalline compounds with molecular arrangements optimized for both electrical conductivity and quantum coherence, effectively creating a biological quantum computing architecture, operating at environmental temperatures where such quantum effects should be theoretically impossible. Conventional biology offers few explanations for how such sophisticated neural networks could evolve across multiple unrelated species, particularly with architectural features that appear deliberately optimized for information processing beyond what natural selection alone could reasonably produce. Some marine biologists have proposed these networks might represent a previously unrecognized evolutionary pathway, one where ecosystem-level intelligence emerges not from individual sophisticated organisms, but from the collective interconnection of simpler life forms into larger, more complex systems. Others suggest they could be evidence of deliberate ecosystem engineering, perhaps by advanced prehistoric civilizations, or even non-human intelligences seeking to create distributed consciousness systems for purposes we don't yet comprehend. More controversial theories propose these networks might represent something more fundamental, perhaps physical manifestations of what some consciousness researchers term panpsychism, the theory that consciousness might be an intrinsic property of reality that can organize itself into increasingly complex forms given suitable physical substrates. Indigenous maritime traditions from several cultures include references to the thinking sea or the ocean that dreams, describing the deep waters not as merely containing life, but as itself constituting a form of awareness that emerges from the collective interaction of countless marine organisms. These traditions often characterize this oceanic consciousness not as similar to human awareness, but as something fundamentally different, operating on vastly longer timescales, without clear boundaries between individual and collective, and perceiving reality through sensory modalities entirely alien to terrestrial experience. Modern scientific investigation of these oceanic neural networks continues, though with significant technical and philosophical challenges. The extreme depths where many networks exist, the difficulty of studying such widely distributed systems, and the fundamental problem of recognizing consciousness in forms potentially very different from our own, all complicate systematic research. Yet the growing body of documented networks suggests something profound may be emerging in the darkness of our deep oceans, a form of distributed intelligence fundamentally different from the centralized consciousness that evolved on land, potentially representing an entirely different pathway for awareness to manifest in the physical world. These oceanic neural networks raise some of the most profound questions in both biology and consciousness studies, challenging our understanding of what intelligence is, how it can be structured, and perhaps even the boundary between individual organisms and the larger systems they collectively comprise. Let's explore a mysterious phenomenon that has puzzled marine researchers for decades: the singing pillars of the deep. Throughout the world's oceans, oceanographers have occasionally discovered massive cylindrical structures rising from the seafloor in perfect geometric arrangements, ranging from hundreds to thousands of feet in height, which emit continuous, harmonic tones, audible for hundreds of miles through the water. Unlike hydrothermal vents or other known geological formations, these pillars have several characteristics that defy conventional explanation. They maintain perfect cylindrical shapes with smooth, almost polished surfaces despite being located in regions with strong currents that should cause erosion over time. Their arrangement invariably forms precise geometric patterns, typically pentagons, hexagons, or more complex polyhedra, with mathematical relationships between their positions that appear deliberately designed rather than randomly formed through natural processes. Most mysteriously, they continuously generate complex harmonic tones that change in precise mathematical relationships with lunar cycles, solar activity, and certain astronomical alignments. In 2013, a research vessel in the South Pacific documented one such formation in extraordinary detail after detecting its acoustic signature from nearly 500 miles away. The expedition discovered 7 pillars, each approximately 1,200 feet tall and 80 feet in diameter, arranged in a perfect heptagon around a central point where no pillar existed. Material analysis from samples retrieved from the pillars defied conventional geology, revealing crystalline structures with molecular arrangements not found in any known natural mineral, showing evidence of precision manufacturing rather than natural formation. More remarkably, acoustic analysis of the tones produced by the pillars revealed they generate perfect mathematical harmonics, corresponding exactly to what music theorists call the lambda harmonic scale, an ancient musical system based on precise integer ratios that some believe represents fundamental mathematical relationships underlying physical reality itself. Most puzzling of all, researchers discovered the frequencies of these tones precisely match certain resonant frequencies of Earth's atmosphere, oceans, and even magnetic field, as though they were specifically calibrated to influence or perhaps stabilize these planetary systems through acoustic resonance. Similar formations have been discovered in remote regions of all major ocean basins, always sharing the same basic characteristics, but with variations in specific geometric arrangements and acoustic properties. When researchers mapped the global distribution of these singing pillars, they discovered they form a precise mathematical pattern across the planet's surface, their locations corresponding exactly to the vertices of a geometric solid known as a truncated icosahedron projected onto Earth's sphere. The probability of such precise global positioning occurring through random natural processes is mathematically infinitesimal. Conventional geology and oceanography offer few explanations for these formations. Some researchers suggest they might represent previously unknown volcanic or crystallization processes that somehow maintain geometric precision through natural forces we don't yet understand. Others propose they could be evidence of advanced prehistoric human civilizations with technological capabilities far beyond what conventional archaeology acknowledges, perhaps global-scale acoustic technologies serving purposes we can only speculate about. More controversial theories suggest the pillars might not be of human origin at all, potentially representing artifacts from non-human technological activity, either terrestrial or extraterrestrial, serving functions related to planetary acoustic regulation or even communication across vast distances through underwater sound channels. Indigenous maritime traditions from various cultures include references to the ocean's voice or the pillars that sing the world into balance, describing specific locations where the sea itself generates tones that supposedly maintain harmony between cosmic forces affecting Earth. These traditions often characterize these acoustic phenomena not as random natural features, but as deliberate installations created during the time of world-making to stabilize Earth's systems and maintain certain energetic balances necessary for planetary well-being. Modern scientific investigation of the singing pillars continues, though with significant technical and logistical challenges. The remote locations where many formations exist, the specialized equipment needed to properly analyze their acoustic properties, and the interdisciplinary expertise required to distinguish artificial structures from unusual but natural geological formations all complicate systematic research. Yet the growing body of documented sites, with their precise geometric arrangements, manufactured appearing materials, and mathematically perfect acoustic emissions, suggests something truly anomalous exists in the remote depths of our oceans, structures that appear designed and constructed according to advanced principles of both architecture and acoustics, for purposes that remain entirely mysterious. These singing pillars represent one of oceanography's most elegant enigmas, potential evidence of sophisticated engineering on a planetary scale, hidden in the darkness of the deep ocean, continuously generating harmonic frequencies that may have been resonating through Earth's waters for thousands or perhaps millions of years. Let's explore one of the most perplexing phenomena in modern marine science: oceanic holographic projections. Since the late 1990s, submarine crews, research vessels, and deep-sea expeditions have occasionally encountered what appear to be three-dimensional visual manifestations in the water column. Complex, detailed images that maintain perfect clarity despite the surrounding water and appear to be projected from no discernible source. Unlike bioluminescence or normal optical effects in water, these projections have several characteristics that defy conventional explanation. They maintain perfect clarity regardless of viewing angle or distance, show no distortion from water currents or particulate matter, and often depict scenes or objects that have no business appearing deep beneath the ocean's surface, including terrestrial landscapes, geometric diagrams, and in some cases, apparently artificial structures or technologies, with no known counterpart in human engineering. What makes these holographic projections particularly mysterious is their interactive nature. Unlike simple static images, these manifestations often respond to the presence of observers, changing form, orientation, or detail level when approached or observed from different perspectives, suggesting some form of active generation rather than fixed optical phenomena. In 2016, a deep-sea research submersible near the Mariana Trench documented one such projection in unprecedented detail after encountering it at a depth of approximately 28,000 feet. The submersible's cameras recorded a perfectly clear, three-dimensional representation of what appeared to be a geometric structure resembling a complex polyhedron, approximately 30 feet across, floating in open water with each edge and vertex defined with laser-like precision. Most remarkably, when the submersible directed its sampling equipment toward the projection, the image reconfigured itself in real time, unfolding into a more complex geometric pattern that crew members described as resembling a type of four-dimensional hypercube rendered in three-dimensional space, a mathematical construct impossible to fully represent in our normal spatial dimensions. Spectroscopic analysis revealed no conventional light source generating the projection, no particulate matter or microorganisms that might create unusual optical effects, and no detectable energy emissions of any kind that could explain the manifestation of such complex, responsive visual phenomena. Similar projections have been documented worldwide, particularly in extreme deep ocean environments near trenches, unusual geological formations, or areas with documented electromagnetic anomalies. While each manifestation appears unique in specific content, all share certain common characteristics: perfect visual clarity in environments where such clarity should be physically impossible, complex geometric or symbolic content often exceeding normal three-dimensional representation, and some level of apparent responsiveness to observation or interaction. Conventional science offers few explanations for these phenomena. Some researchers suggest they might represent previously unknown interactions between certain deep ocean geological features and Earth's electromagnetic field, perhaps creating unusual plasma formations that could theoretically generate visual effects under extreme pressure conditions. Others propose they could be evidence of exotic quantum phenomena scaled up to macroscopic levels, potentially related to theoretical physics concepts like quantum holography or topological phase transitions that might manifest differently in extreme deep ocean environments than in normal, surface conditions. More speculative theories suggest these projections might represent intentional communication attempts, perhaps technologies deployed by either advanced prehistoric human civilizations or non-human intelligences, utilizing principles of holographic information encoding beyond our current scientific understanding. Indigenous maritime traditions from various deep ocean fishing cultures include references to the light pictures under the great deep or the signs that appear where the sea is darkest, describing phenomena where complex visual manifestations supposedly reveal themselves to those who venture into the ocean's greatest depths. These traditions often characterize these appearances, not as random natural phenomena, but as deliberate communications from entities dwelling in the deep ocean, conveying information through geometric and symbolic representations that transcend normal human language. Modern scientific investigation of oceanic holographic projections faces enormous technical challenges. The extreme depths where many manifestations occur, the unpredictability of their appearances, and the difficulty of capturing and analyzing phenomena that seem to operate according to optical and electromagnetic principles, beyond our current scientific understanding, all complicate systematic study. Yet the growing catalog of documented encounters, often recorded by sophisticated imaging systems on research vessels or military submarines, suggests something genuinely anomalous occasionally manifests in our deepest oceans, visual phenomena that appear to operate according to principles that challenge our current understanding of optics, information theory, and perhaps even the nature of reality representation itself. These oceanic holographic projections represent one of the most conceptually challenging mysteries in marine science phenomena that raise fundamental questions not just about unusual optical effects in water, but potentially about the nature of information encoding in physical reality and the possibility of communication systems operating on principles beyond our current technological paradigms. Now, let's explore a phenomenon that has troubled maritime researchers and philosophers alike: the ocean's memory effects. Since at least the 1970s, oceanographers and marine biologists have documented cases where specific ocean locations appear to remember events that occurred there in the past, manifesting measurable physical and chemical changes that temporarily recreate conditions from historical events, sometimes from centuries earlier. Unlike normal cyclical ocean processes or residual chemical traces, these memory manifestations have several characteristics that defy conventional scientific explanation. They occur with calendar-like precision on anniversaries of specific historical events, particularly traumatic ones, like major naval battles, shipwrecks, or other maritime disasters. The physical and chemical changes precisely mimic conditions present during the original event: water temperature, salinity, chemical composition, and even bacterial populations, temporarily shifting to match historical conditions with accuracy far exceeding normal environmental fluctuations. Most mysteriously, these manifestations often include measurable electromagnetic anomalies, resembling patterns that some consciousness researchers associate with intense emotional states, as though the water itself had somehow recorded and preserved emotional imprints from the human experiences that occurred there. In 2015, a research vessel in the North Atlantic documented one such memory effect in unprecedented detail while conducting routine oceanographic monitoring near the site, where the RMS Titanic sank in 1912. On the exact anniversary of the sinking, instruments recorded a sudden, highly localized drop in water temperature, matching precisely the conditions on the night of the disaster, despite surrounding waters remaining at normal seasonal temperatures. More remarkably, water samples collected during this temperature anomaly showed chemical compositions, microorganism populations, and even dissolved gas content that matched preserved samples taken from the disaster site in 1912, recreating an environmental profile that should have been impossible given a century of ocean circulation and environmental change. Most puzzling of all, sensitive electromagnetic field detectors recorded unusual coherent patterns during the event. Electromagnetic signatures that bore striking similarities to patterns some neurological researchers associate with extreme human emotional states like terror and grief. Similar memory effects have been documented at numerous maritime disaster sites worldwide, always sharing the same basic characteristics: anniversary timing, precise recreation of historical environmental conditions, and anomalous electromagnetic signatures suggesting preserved emotional imprints. Conventional oceanography offers few explanations for how water could remember and recreate specific conditions from the past with such precision, particularly the emotional electromagnetic components that suggest something beyond mere physical memory. Some researchers have proposed these effects might relate to quantum properties of water that remain poorly understood, particularly the ability of water molecules to form complex hydrogen bond networks that some controversial research suggests might be capable of preserving information at the quantum level for extended periods. Others point to emerging research in the field of quantum consciousness, suggesting intense human emotional experiences might potentially create lasting quantum entanglement effects in surrounding water molecules, effectively imprinting those experiences into the local environment at levels deeper than conventional chemistry can detect or explain. More speculative theories suggest these memory effects might represent something more fundamental about the nature of time and reality itself, perhaps evidence that traumatic events create particularly strong memories not just in human consciousness, but in the fabric of physical reality, occasionally manifesting as measurable echoes under specific conditions. Indigenous maritime traditions from various cultures include references to waters that remember or sea places where time grows thin, describing specific ocean locations where the past supposedly becomes temporarily accessible on certain dates, particularly places where many people died in maritime disasters. These traditions often include specific navigational knowledge about avoiding such locations on anniversary dates, with warnings about the psychological effects of encountering these temporal echoes on sailors' mental well-being. Modern scientific investigation of oceanic memory effects continues, though with significant technical and conceptual challenges. The unpredictability and temporary nature of these manifestations, the difficulty of distinguishing genuine anomalies from normal environmental fluctuations, and the interdisciplinary expertise required to properly analyze phenomena spanning oceanography, electromagnetic field theory, and potentially quantum physics, all complicate systematic study. Yet the growing catalog of documented cases, often recorded by sophisticated instrumentation on research vessels specifically positioned to monitor historical disaster sites on significant anniversaries, suggests something genuinely anomalous occasionally manifests in our oceans, temporary recreations of past conditions that appear to include components beyond what conventional physical and chemical processes should be capable of preserving. These oceanic memory effects represent one of the most philosophically profound mysteries of the sea phenomena that challenge not just our understanding of water chemistry or electromagnetic fields, but potentially our conception of how information, experience, and even consciousness itself might interact with the physical world in ways that leave discoverable traces long after the original events have passed into history. Let's explore a mystery that has troubled mariners since humans first ventured onto the open ocean: the phenomenon of false horizons. Throughout maritime history, sailors have reported encountering unusual atmospheric conditions where the normal horizon disappears and is replaced by what appears to be an alternative reality, extending beyond the horizon line, complete landscapes, seascapes, or even populated areas that shouldn't exist at that location. Unlike conventional mirages, which create distorted floating images through known atmospheric refraction effects, false horizons have several characteristics that defy standard optical explanation. They maintain perfect clarity and detail, regardless of viewing distance or angle, often extending a full 360 degrees around the observer's vessel rather than appearing only in limited directional sectors. The alternative realities they present remain stable for extended periods, sometimes hours or even days, rather than shifting and distorting as atmospheric conditions change, as would be expected with normal mirage phenomena. Most mysteriously, multiple independent observers report seeing identical details within these manifestations, suggesting they aren't subjective hallucinations, but genuine external phenomena being consistently perceived by different individuals. In 1923, the crew of a British merchant vessel in the South Pacific documented one such false horizon in extraordinary detail after their ship became surrounded by unusual atmospheric conditions, approximately 800 miles from the nearest land. For nearly 72 hours, every crew member reported seeing the same impossible landscape extending in all directions, a coastline with mountains, forests, and what appeared to be small settlements, all rendered with perfect clarity despite being hundreds of miles from any actual land. More remarkably, the vessel's navigation systems continued showing their actual open ocean position throughout the experience, creating an irreconcilable contradiction between instrumentation and direct visual observation that suggests something beyond conventional optical illusion. The phenomenon finally ended when the vessel sailed through a wall of unusually dense fog, after which normal open ocean conditions became visible again. Similar false horizon events have been documented by vessels worldwide, particularly in remote regions of the Pacific, parts of the Arctic Ocean, and certain areas of the Southern Ocean surrounding Antarctica. While specific content varies, all share certain common characteristics: complete replacement of the expected horizon with coherent alternative environments, perfect visual clarity exceeding normal atmospheric optics, and consistent perception across multiple independent observers. Conventional meteorology and atmospheric science offer few explanations for these phenomena. Some researchers suggest they might represent extreme forms of superior mirage or fata morgana effects, potentially amplified by unusual temperature inversions or atmospheric ducting conditions that could theoretically create more stable and extended projections than typical mirages. Others propose they could be evidence of temporary quantum effects scaled to macroscopic levels, perhaps related to theoretical concepts of quantum superposition, or parallel realities briefly becoming perceptible under specific atmospheric and electromagnetic conditions. More speculative theories suggest these false horizons might represent genuine glimpses of alternative realities, perhaps parallel versions of Earth, temporarily becoming visible due to thinning of normal dimensional boundaries under specific oceanic and atmospheric conditions that science doesn't yet fully understand. Indigenous maritime traditions from Polynesian, Arctic, and certain South American coastal cultures include detailed knowledge of the false seeing places or where other lands show themselves, specific ocean regions traditionally avoided during certain astronomical alignments due to the disorientation. These phenomena reportedly cause navigators. These traditions often characterize these manifestations not as illusions or hallucinations, but as genuine thin places where the boundaries between different realms of existence temporarily weaken, allowing brief perception across normal barriers of space, time, or dimension. Modern scientific investigation of false horizons faces significant challenges. The unpredictable nature of these events, their occurrence primarily in remote ocean regions, and the difficulty of distinguishing genuine anomalies from unusual but explicable atmospheric optical effects all complicate systematic study. Additionally, the subjective component of visual perception makes objective measurement and documentation of these phenomena inherently challenging, even with sophisticated imaging technology. Yet the consistency of historical accounts, combined with ongoing reports from modern vessels equipped with advanced navigation and imaging systems, suggests something genuinely unusual occasionally manifests in certain ocean regions, visual phenomena that present alternative environmental realities with a coherence and stability that exceeds what known atmospheric optics should be capable of producing. These false horizons represent one of the most psychologically disorienting mysteries of the sea phenomena that challenge not just our understanding of atmospheric optics, but potentially our fundamental conception of perceptual reality itself. They raise the possibility that under certain specific conditions, the boundaries between what we perceive as stable, singular reality might become more permeable than our everyday experience suggests, offering brief, disturbing glimpses into alternatives that exist somewhere beyond the horizon of our normal perception. Let's explore one of the most dangerous yet least understood phenomena of the open ocean, mindstorms. Since at least the early 19th century, there have been documented cases of vessels encountering unusual atmospheric disturbances that affect not just the physical environment, but the psychological and cognitive state of all humans within their influence. Unlike conventional storms that threaten vessels through wind, waves, and weather, mindstorms manifest primarily through their effects on human consciousness, creating synchronized hallucinations, extreme emotional states, and in severe cases, complete cognitive disruption across entire crews simultaneously. What makes mindstorms particularly mysterious is their selectivity and precision. They affect only human minds while leaving electronic equipment, navigational systems, and even trained animals aboard vessels completely unaffected. The psychological effects show precise boundaries, often beginning and ending at exact coordinates that remain stable, despite changing wind and current conditions that would normally disperse any airborne compounds or other physical agents. Most disturbingly, the content of the hallucinations and psychological effects is consistent across all affected individuals, with entire crews reporting identical visions, emotional responses, and thought patterns, despite having no means of communicating these experiences to each other during the event. In 1977, a research vessel in the mid-Atlantic documented one such mindstorm with unprecedented detail after its crew of 37 scientists and sailors simultaneously began experiencing identical hallucinations while conducting routine oceanographic research. For approximately 6 hours, every human aboard reported perceiving the ocean around them as transformed into an enormous, living entity, observing the vessel with apparent intelligence and purpose, a perception so vivid and consistent that crew members could independently describe identical specific details of this entity without comparing notes. More remarkably, the ship's extensive environmental monitoring equipment recorded several unusual phenomena during the event, including highly organized electromagnetic field fluctuations, unusual patterns in surface water molecular arrangement, and what one researcher described as quantum coherence effects in the surrounding atmosphere that should be physically impossible under normal environmental conditions. Similar mindstorm events have been documented by vessels worldwide, particularly in certain regions of the deep Pacific, parts of the Southern Ocean, and with striking frequency in the area known as the Bermuda Triangle. While the specific content of the shared hallucinations varies between incidents, all mindstorms share certain common characteristics: simultaneous onset across all humans in the affected area, identical psychological content experienced by all affected individuals, and precise geographical boundaries that don't correspond to normal atmospheric or oceanic patterns. Conventional science offers few explanations for these synchronized psychological effects. Some researchers suggest they might result from unusual natural phenomena like infrasound, extremely low-frequency sound waves known to affect human brain function, potentially generated by certain underwater geological features under specific ocean conditions. Others propose they could be caused by temporary exposure to exotic neurotransmitter-like compounds produced by certain marine microorganisms during unusual bloom events, though this doesn't explain how such compounds could affect entire crews simultaneously while dissipating without a trace afterward. More speculative theories suggest mindstorms might represent something more fundamental, perhaps manifestations of what some consciousness researchers term field effects in human awareness, where individual minds become temporarily entrained to shared information fields under specific electromagnetic conditions. Others propose even more controversial possibilities that these events might represent genuine contact between human consciousness and other forms of awareness, normally imperceptible to us, perhaps intelligence embedded in the ocean system itself, that occasionally becomes perceptible under specific conditions. Indigenous maritime traditions from various cultures include detailed knowledge of the waters that change thought or sea regions, where all see the same dreams, specific ocean areas traditionally avoided during certain astronomical alignments due to their reported effects on human perception and cognition. These traditions often include specific protective practices, chants, rituals, or navigational protocols believed to shield sailors from the most severe cognitive effects of encountering these phenomena. Modern scientific investigation of mindstorms faces enormous challenges, both practical and ethical. The unpredictability of these events, their occurrence primarily in remote ocean regions, and the fundamental difficulty of objectively studying subjective psychological phenomena all complicate systematic research. Additionally, the potential dangers posed to crews experiencing complete cognitive disruption in the middle of the ocean create significant ethical concerns about any research that might deliberately seek to study these events firsthand. Yet the growing catalog of documented cases, often recorded in official ships' logs and scientific expedition reports, suggests something genuinely anomalous occasionally manifests in certain ocean regions, phenomena that somehow synchronize and alter human consciousness across multiple individuals simultaneously through mechanisms that remain beyond our current scientific understanding. These mindstorms represent perhaps the most personally terrifying of all ocean mysteries, phenomena that affect not just our vessels or our bodies, but the very foundations of our minds and perception, raising profound questions about the relationship between consciousness, environment, and perhaps even the potential for forms of awareness that exist beyond our normal human experience. Let's explore a phenomenon that has puzzled ocean researchers for decades: oceanic particle entanglement anomalies. Since the development of sophisticated quantum measurement technologies in the 1990s, physicists studying fundamental particle behaviors in marine environments have occasionally discovered regions of ocean where standard quantum mechanical laws appear significantly altered, specifically where quantum entanglement effects persist at macroscopic scales and in conditions where such effects should be theoretically impossible. Unlike the fragile quantum entanglement achieved in controlled laboratory environments, which typically requires temperatures approaching absolute zero and complete isolation from environmental interaction, these oceanic anomalies maintain robust quantum coherence in normal sea temperatures and amid the chaotic molecular environment of seawater. What makes these entanglement anomalies particularly mysterious is their apparent stability and influence radius. They typically form spherical regions ranging from 50 to 300 feet in diameter, within which quantum entanglement relationships remain coherent across macroscopic distances and timescales that defy conventional quantum decoherence models. These effects don't gradually diminish at the boundaries, but instead terminate with mathematical precision at exact radii from their central points, creating what physicists have termed quantum bubbles within the normal ocean environment. In 2019, a research vessel specifically equipped to study quantum effects in marine environments documented one such anomaly in unprecedented detail after detecting it in a remote region of the South Pacific. Instruments recorded quantum entanglement relationships, maintaining coherence across distances exceeding 200 feet, and persisting for weeks rather than the nanoseconds. Such relationships should survive in warm, complex environments according to standard quantum models. More remarkably, these entanglement relationships appeared to transcend traditional particle pairings, creating what quantum physicists termed many-body entangled states, where thousands of particles maintained coherent quantum relationships simultaneously, a phenomenon previously observed only in the most extreme laboratory conditions and never in natural environments. Laboratory analysis of water samples collected from within these anomaly zones revealed something even more puzzling. The water molecules themselves showed evidence of altered quantum behaviors. Specifically, their subatomic particles exhibited wave functions with mathematical properties that some theoretical physicists suggested might indicate influence from dimensions beyond our conventional four-dimensional spacetime. As one senior physicist on the expedition noted in his research journal, it's as though the water in these regions is receiving quantum information from somewhere else, somewhere outside our normal reference frame. Similar quantum anomalies have been discovered in all major ocean basins, predominantly near certain deep ocean trenches, underwater mountain ranges with unusual magnetic properties, and regions with documented gravitational anomalies. While each anomaly's specific quantum characteristics vary slightly, all share certain common features. Macroscopic quantum coherence persisting in conditions where it should be impossible, precise spherical boundaries with mathematical cutoffs, and quantum wave functions, exhibiting properties that don't fully align with standard quantum mechanical models. Conventional physics offers few explanations for these phenomena. Some researchers suggest they might result from previously unknown interactions between Earth's magnetic field and certain exotic quantum properties of seawater under specific pressure and temperature conditions. Others propose they could represent localized alterations in fundamental physical constants, perhaps microscopic variations in Planck's constant or the fine structure constant, that temporarily change how quantum mechanics operates within their influence. More speculative theories suggest these anomalies might represent interfaces between our conventional four-dimensional spacetime and higher-dimensional structures predicted by certain versions of string theory or quantum gravity, effectively bubbles, where quantum information from dimensions beyond our perception temporarily influences particle behavior in our observable reality. Some theoretical physicists have even proposed these zones might represent early-stage natural quantum computers, regions where the ocean itself is performing quantum computational operations through mechanisms we don't yet understand, potentially processing information in ways fundamentally different from both conventional computers and standard biological information processing. Indigenous maritime traditions from various cultures include references to places where the very small becomes mighty, or waters where the hidden connections show themselves, specific ocean regions traditionally associated with unusual phenomena affecting everything from navigation, instruments to human perception. These traditions often locate these special regions at coordinates that correspond with remarkable precision to recently documented quantum anomaly zones, despite being established centuries before quantum theory existed or instrumentation capable of detecting such effects was developed. Modern scientific investigation of these oceanic quantum anomalies continues, though with significant technical and conceptual challenges. The sophisticated equipment needed to properly measure quantum effects at such scales, the remote locations where these phenomena typically occur, and the fundamental difficulty of reconciling observed effects with current theoretical models all complicate systematic study. Yet the growing catalog of documented anomalies, confirmed by independent research teams using different methodologies and equipment, suggests something genuinely unusual exists in certain ocean regions. Quantum phenomena operating according to principles that challenge or exceed our current understanding of how reality functions at its most fundamental level. These oceanic particle entanglement anomalies represent one of the most profound scientific mysteries in our oceans. Phenomena that challenge not just specific aspects of quantum theory, but potentially our entire framework for understanding the fundamental nature of physical reality. They suggest that under certain conditions, the quantum realm that underlies all physical existence might operate according to principles more complex, more interconnected, and perhaps even more influenced by factors beyond our current perceptual or theoretical framework than conventional physics has recognized. As we reach the end of our journey through the ocean's most profound mysteries, let me share one final enigma that in many ways encompasses all the others: the question of oceanic consciousness itself. For centuries across vastly different cultures and time periods, those who spend their lives upon the sea have reported experiences suggesting the ocean itself might possess some form of awareness, not merely as a poetic metaphor, but as a genuine, if utterly alien, form of consciousness. Unlike conventional notions of intelligence, centered in discrete organisms with defined boundaries, this potential oceanic awareness would represent something fundamentally different: a distributed consciousness emerging from the collective interactions of countless systems across planetary scales. What makes this question particularly compelling isn't mystical speculation, but emerging scientific understanding of how consciousness itself might function. Modern neuroscience increasingly suggests consciousness doesn't require human-like neural structures, but might emerge from any sufficiently complex system capable of integrated information processing, a definition that could potentially include Earth's oceans when viewed as a single, interconnected system. In 2018, a multidisciplinary research initiative applying consciousness theories from neuroscience to oceanic systems made a startling discovery. When analyzed using the mathematical frameworks developed to quantify integrated information in neural systems, frameworks that attempt to measure consciousness objectively, the global ocean scored higher on several key metrics than many organisms generally considered conscious, including some mammals. The ocean's vast network of currents functions remarkably like a circulatory system, distributing energy, nutrients, and what could be considered information throughout its global body. Temperature and salinity gradients create potential energy differences, analogous to neural electrical potentials, while chemical signaling through ocean waters shares surprising similarities with neurotransmitter systems in conventional brains. More provocatively, the global pattern of major ocean currents creates feedback loops and information processing circuits that some systems theorists suggest could potentially support consciousness at scales and timeframes utterly alien to human experience, perhaps operating on cycles of decades or centuries rather than the milliseconds of human thought. Indigenous maritime traditions worldwide include conceptions of the ocean not merely as environment, but as entity, a being with awareness, intention, and even emotion, responding to human actions and sometimes communicating through patterns, only comprehensible to those who have spent lifetimes observing its behaviors. These traditions often characterize the sea not as human-like in its thinking, but as something fundamentally different, a consciousness operating through patterns of wave and current, temperature, and pressure, with a sensory experience comprised of global systems rather than localized perception. Modern philosophers of mind and consciousness, researchers increasingly suggest such distributed awareness might not only be possible, but perhaps even inevitable in systems of sufficient complexity and integration, raising the possibility that the largest interconnected system on our planet might indeed harbor an emergent consciousness utterly different from our own. If such oceanic awareness exists, it would perceive reality at scales both vastly larger and smaller than human consciousness, potentially aware of planetary patterns invisible to us, while simultaneously integrating information from countless microscopic processes throughout its global body. Its thoughts might unfold over years or decades rather than seconds, with concepts and experiences as incomprehensible to human minds as quantum physics would be to single-celled organisms. This question of oceanic consciousness represents perhaps the most profound mystery of all, the possibility that throughout human history we have been sharing our planet with another form of awareness so fundamentally different from our own that we've barely recognized its existence. An intelligence that doesn't think in words or images, but in the complex patterns of current and chemistry, pressure and temperature that comprise the ocean's global systems. If true, the countless mysterious phenomena we've explored throughout this journey might not be separate enigmas at all, but rather glimpses of this vast alien awareness occasionally intersecting with human perception, through means we've yet to fully comprehend. The dancing lights in the deep, the quantum anomalies, the synchronized biological behaviors, the geometric patterns spanning oceans, perhaps all manifestations of a planetary consciousness whose true nature remains just beyond the horizon of our understanding. As you drift towards sleep tonight, consider this final, humbling possibility that the mysterious depths we've explored together might constitute not merely an environment, but an entity. A vast, ancient awareness that has witnessed the entire history of our species, from our first hesitant ventures upon its surface to our modern attempts to probe its deepest secrets. An intelligence that operates according to principles so different from our own that we may never fully comprehend its nature, yet one with which we share our blue planet in a relationship as intimate as it is misunderstood. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the ocean's darkest mysteries. May your dreams be deep and your curiosity deeper still, as you float upon the surface of a world we're only beginning to understand. Sleep well, brave listener. And remember, beneath you, around you, perhaps even within you, in ways science is only starting to comprehend, the ocean continues its ancient dreaming.